Hey guys, just want to say if you're new here, please smash that subscribe button and don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoy these stories. Now, let us know in the comments what you guys want to hear, and yeah, it'd be great to interact with you guys. Now, let's enjoy the stories.
I should have known something was off the second I saw how clean the picture was. Craigslist photos are usually blurry or taken in the dark with someone's thumb in the corner. This one looked like it belonged in a furniture store. Perfect lighting. Beige recliner, soft looking, no stains, no sag in the middle. The post said free recliner, barely used, need gone today. No delivery. Bring your own truck. I had just moved into a tiny duplex where the floor felt like concrete and my back was killing me from sitting on milk crates. Free sounded perfect. The guy answered fast. He sent me an address on the edge of town, past the grocery warehouse and the old skating rink that shut down years ago. Not a neighborhood where people usually live, more like where buildings go to rot. I told myself it was just a storage unit or something. The drive out there felt longer than it should have. The sun was already going down, and the warehouses threw these long shadows over the road. The address led me to a squat, square building that looked like it used to be a small clinic. The sign frame was still there, but the letters were gone, just a blank whiteboard over the door. The parking lot was empty except for a silver van backed in close to the entrance. I almost left. I actually sat in my car with it running, checking the listing again. Free recliner. Still up. Still looked normal. I figured maybe the guy just had weird taste in meeting spots. When he opened the door, it was like he had been standing there waiting for me to pull up. He was thin, kind of pale in that indoor way, like he never went outside. He waved me in before I could say anything. Inside smelled like cleaning chemicals and something sweet underneath it, like air freshener trying too hard. The place was mostly empty. No front desk, no decorations. Just wide open floor and a few overhead lights buzzing faintly. And right in the middle of the room was the recliner from the photo. It looked even better in person. Soft fabric, no rips, no weird smell. Just sitting there alone like it was on display. I expected him to point me toward the back or help me lift it. Instead, he just stood near the wall and watched me walk toward it. He explained that he needed one small favor before I could take it. Said he was doing some kind of personal research and needed someone to test the chair. He told me I just had to sit in it while he timed how long I could stay conscious. I thought he was joking at first. I even looked around for a camera or something. He wasn't smiling. I should have left right then, but the way he said it was calm, almost clinical, like he was asking me to check if the cushions were comfortable. He told me it was harmless, that most people lasted at least a few minutes. He mentioned that if I did well, he might have other furniture to give away later. I don't know why that convinced me. Maybe because I was broke. Maybe because I didn't want to look paranoid. Maybe because the chair looked normal in the building while creepy wasn't falling apart or anything. I told myself if anything felt weird, I'd just stand up and leave. I sat down. It was comfortable. Too comfortable. The cushion sank perfectly under my weight, and the back hugged my shoulders. There was a little lever on the side. He told me to pull it so it would recline fully. I leaned back. That's when I noticed the faint hiss. It was so soft I almost thought it was my imagination, like air escaping from somewhere deep inside the chair. I turned my head slightly and caught a glimpse of something under the armrest. A small metal vent, almost hidden in the seam of the fabric. My stomach dropped. I tried to sit up right away, but my body felt heavier than it should have, like gravity had doubled. My arms still moved, just slower. I remember thinking this is stupid, just get up. My legs didn't respond the way they should have. They twitched, but it felt delayed, like my brain was sending signals through stirrup. The hiss continued, steady and quiet. He stepped closer, holding a phone in his hand. Not filming, just watching the screen like a stopwatch. His face didn't change. No excitement, no panic, just focus. I tried to take a deep breath, and that's when I realized the sweet smell was stronger. Not from the room, from the chair. It filled my nose and throat, thick and warm. My head started to buzz. I remember staring at the ceiling tiles. They were stained in places, old watermarks spreading like maps. I tried counting them to stay alert. 1, 2, 3. My thoughts kept slipping. My heart was pounding at first, but then it slowed in this weird, steady way. Not calm, just distant, like it belonged to someone else. My fingers tingled. I lifted one hand and it looked normal, but it felt detached, like I was moving a prop. I could see him in my peripheral vision, glancing between me and his phone. I thought about yelling, but the idea of forming words felt huge, like lifting a car. My tongue felt thick and useless. My jaw barely moved. The room started to tilt just slightly. The lights above me blurred at the edges. I focused on his shoes instead, black sneakers with white soles. One of the laces was frayed. I don't know why that detail stuck in my head. Time stretched. I had no idea how long I had been there. It felt like seconds and hours at the same time. I managed to shift my weight. The movement was small, but it made the hiss change pitch for a second. I realized the gas was probably triggered by the full recline. Maybe if I could sit forward, it would stop. I forced my torso up inch by inch. It felt like doing a sit-up underwater. My vision darkened at the edges. The hiss weakened slightly. He moved closer, not touching me, just hovering near the side of the chair, still timing. Something inside me panicked harder than before. Not loud a panic, more like a cold, sharp clarity. If I blacked out completely, I had no idea what would happen next, and that thought cut through the fog just enough. I leaned forward as hard as I could. My body slid off the chair and onto the floor. The impact barely hurt. It was like falling onto carpet even though it was concrete. The hiss stopped completely once my weight left the backrest. I lay there staring at the side of the recliner. Underneath the fabric, I could see a slight bulge where something mechanical was hidden. A small tube ran from the base toward the back, disappearing into the cushion. He stepped around me, still holding his phone. He looked down, studying me like a lab project. I couldn't lift my head fully, but I could see his shoes again. I focused on breathing shallow, quick breaths, trying not to pull in whatever lingered in the air. The sweet smell was fading, but not gone. After a few seconds, maybe longer, my arms started to feel more solid. The tingling eased. My thoughts sharpened just enough to form one clear plan: crawl. I pushed myself onto my hands and knees. The floor felt cold and real. Every movement was slow, but possible. He didn't grab me. He didn't block the door. He just watched. That almost made it worse. I crawled toward the entrance. Each step felt like dragging weights. My vision flickered once, like a glitch, and I almost collapsed again. But the air near the door felt cleaner, less sweet. I grabbed the handle and pulled myself up. The metal was cool against my palm. I stumbled outside and fell against my car. The night air hit me hard. It felt like diving into ice water. I gulped it in, coughing. I don't remember getting into the driver's seat. I just remember the engine already running and the building shrinking in my rearview mirror. When I finally stopped shaking enough to think straight, I realized something that made my skin crawl more than the gas. The listing was gone. I checked my phone 3 times. The messages were still there, but when I tapped the original post, it said deleted. I thought about calling the police. I even drove back toward town, passing the first gas station. But what was I supposed to say? That a guy with a free chair made me sit in it and I got dizzy. I had no proof, no recording, no pictures. For a second, I wondered how many other people had sat in that recliner and not managed to fall off in time. I didn't go back. My back still hurts from sitting on crates. I don't look at free furniture posts anymore. Sometimes when I'm trying to sleep, I picture that chair sitting alone in the middle of that empty building, waiting for the next person who thinks free is worth a few minutes. And somewhere in my head, I can still hear that faint hiss, steady and patient. I knew something was wrong before I'd even knocked, and I can't explain how. It wasn't the neighborhood. The houses were normal small brick places lined up too close together, each with a patchy lawn and one sad tree in front. It wasn't the post either. Room for rent, $500 a month, utilities included, quiet home, close to campus. The pictures looked clean. Basic furniture, light blue walls, hardwood floors. Nothing fancy, but way better than the couch I'd been sleeping on in my friend's apartment. I think it was just the way the house sat there. Like it wasn't waiting for someone to live in it. It was waiting for someone specific. I had answered the listing the night before. The guy replied fast. Said he preferred female tenants because they were cleaner and more respectful. That should have been weird, but honestly, I was desperate. My friend's boyfriend was moving in and I needed out. When I pulled up, the blinds were all half closed. Not fully shut, not fully open, just enough to make it impossible to see inside clearly. The porch light was on, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. He opened the door before I knocked. He looked normal. Maybe mid-30s. Clean clothes, neutral face, polite smile. He had this calm way of standing, hands folded in front of him like he worked at a bank or something. The inside of the house smelled like lemon cleaner and something older underneath it. Like carpet that had been washed too many times but never fully dried. He told me he'd show me around. The living room was neat. Couch against one wall, TV on a small stand, no clutter. The kitchen was the same. Everything lined up too perfectly. Dishes stacked in exact order. Magnets on the fridge arranged in straight lines. I noticed right away there were no pictures in anywhere. No family photos, no random snapshots. The walls were empty except for a single clock ticking loudly above the hallway entrance. That hallway felt longer than it should have. 3 doors on the left, one at the very end. As we walked toward it, I felt this weird pressure in my chest, like my body was trying to warn me before my brain caught up. He stopped at the first door and pushed it open. The room was small but decent. Twin bed, desk, dresser. Plain white sheets pulled tight. The window faced the backyard, which looked overgrown but fenced in. Then I saw the door. On the inside of the door, scratched into the wood, was a woman's name. Not written in marker, not painted, carved. Deep enough that the wood splintered slightly around the letters. The name looked like it had been scratched with something sharp and slow, each line uneven, pressing hard into the surface. I stared at it longer than I meant to. He stood behind me, too quiet. I told myself maybe it was from a previous tenant, maybe someone bored with a knife. We moved to the second door. Same setup. Small room, neat bed, desk. But this time, the name was different. Also carved. Also deep. It wasn't random scribbles. It was a full first name, carefully done. I noticed the scratches looked similar. Same pressure, same style. My stomach started to feel tight. By the third room, I was already expecting it. And there it was. Another woman's name carved into the inside of the door. 3 rooms, 3 different names. I tried to keep my face neutral. Tried to act like this wasn't the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. He didn't explain it. Didn't mention it. Just stood there like nothing was off. Then he said the last room was the largest and probably the one I'd want. We walked to the end of the hallway. The air felt heavier back there. Less circulation. The light from the living room didn't reach fully down the hall, so the end was dim even though it was daytime. He opened the last door slowly. The room was slightly bigger. Full-sized bed. Bigger desk. Closet doors closed. I stepped inside. And then I looked at the door. For a second, my brain didn't process it. Because the name carved into the wood was mine. Exact spelling. Same way I spell it, which is not the most common version. The letters were fresh, lighter in color than the others, like the wood underneath hadn't darkened yet. There were tiny curls of wood still clinging to the grooves. I felt like all the air left my lungs at once. I had never told him my full name in the messages, only my first name, and even then, I used a shortened version online, but the carving was my full name. I stood there staring at it, trying to think logically. Maybe he read my social media somehow. Maybe he searched my email. Maybe it was a coincidence, but the carving looked recent, like it had been done within the last day. I thought about the listing. It said room available immediately. I had replied less than 24 hours ago. That means he carved it after I contacted him. I turned slightly, pretending to look around the room, but really I was trying to see his reflection in the window. He was watching me. Not smiling, not frowning, just watching. I noticed something else then. Each door handle had small scratches around it, like it had been locked and unlocked many times with something that wasn't a key. Thin marks near the screws. I walked toward the closet, just to move, to not stand frozen. When I opened it, there were hangers inside, all empty, but spaced evenly, exactly 5 on each side. The carpet in that room felt softer than the others. Newer, maybe. I started mentally counting things. 3 other names. Mine makes 4. 4 rooms total. Where were the other tenants? He had said in a listing that it was a shared house, quiet home, respectful environment. I hadn't seen anyone else, hadn't heard anyone else. The windows in each bedroom had locks, heavy ones, thicker than normal sliding window locks. I walked back into the hallway slowly. I glanced at the first door again. The name carved there looked older, darker, like it had been there a while. I wondered how long those women had lived there, or if they had. I thought about asking questions, but I couldn't form them. My brain kept circling one thing. He carved my name before I even stepped inside, which means he expected me, which means he was sure. He moved closer down the hallway, getting me space but not too much, like he was guiding without touching. I noticed at the end of the hall near the ceiling, there was a small black dome, almost blended into the corner. Not a smoke detector. Smaller. Camera. I felt cold all over. I walked back toward the living room, trying to keep my pace steady. I didn't want to run. Running would mean panic. Panic would mean reaction. The front door suddenly felt very far away. I passed the clock on the wall and realized it wasn't ticking anymore. It had stopped at 3:17. I didn't know if that meant anything, but it made my skin crawl. When we reached the living room, I finally noticed something I had missed before. On a small side table near the couch was a stack of envelopes. Each one had a woman's name written on it. Handwriting that looked similar to the carvings. I didn't get close enough to read all of them, but I saw at least 3 different names. None of them mine. Not yet. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. I said I needed to think about it, that I had other places to look at. I tried to sound casual, like this was just normal apartment hunting. He nodded slowly. As he walked me to the door, I noticed the inside of the front door had faint lines scratched into it too. Not a name, just tallies. Groups of 5. I didn't count them all. I stepped outside and the air felt different. Lighter, like stepping out of a basement after hours underground. He stayed in the doorway watching me walk to my car. I didn't look back once I got in. I drove straight past my friend's apartment and didn't stop until I was across town in a crowded parking lot. When I checked my phone, the listing was gone. Completely removed. I sat there for a long time staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I kept picturing my name carved into that door, fresh wood still curling at the edges. I don't know who the other names belong to. I don't know how many envelopes were in that stack. I just know that somewhere in that house, at the end of that hallway, there's a room with my name on it. And I never went back to see if it's still there. The first thing I noticed wasn't the screen lighting up. It was the sound. That soft, familiar chime phones make when they connect to Wi-Fi. The little confirmation tone. Except I hadn't typed anything yet. I was sitting on my bed with the blinds half down, late afternoon sun cutting across the wall in lines. My old phone had finally died 2 days before. Wouldn't charge, wouldn't turn on, just gone. I didn't have the money for a brand new one, so I did what everyone says not to do and went on Craigslist. The listing looked simple. Used phone, good condition. Unlocked, $120. The pictures were clear. Black model, no cracks, just a small scuff near the charging port. The guy said he upgraded and didn't need it anymore. We met in a grocery store parking lot. Middle of the day, lots of cars around. He was in his 20s, normal clothes, normal car. He let me hold the phone. It powered on fine. Battery at 60%. No weird wallpaper, just the default setup screen asking me to start configuration. I didn't go through everything there. I just checked the basics. Screen worked. Buttons clicked. Camera opened. It seemed fine. I handed him the cash, $120 exactly, and drove home feeling like I got lucky. I remember feeling kind of proud setting it up on my bed, like I handled something adult on my own. I held the power button and waited for the welcome screen. It asked for language. I selected English. It asked for region. I selected mine. Then it said searching for networks. Before the list even loaded, the Wi-Fi symbol appeared at the top corner. Connected. My network name popped up under it. Secured. I just stared at it. My Wi-Fi name isn't something obvious like home Wi-Fi or my last name. It's random. Letters and numbers from when my brother set it up years ago. I never changed it because I didn't care enough. And the password is worse. Long string of mixed characters. I don't even remember it. It's written on a piece of tape under the router. The phone didn't ask for it. It just connected. I told myself maybe it auto-connected because it had been here before, but that didn't make sense. I've lived in this house my whole life. I've never sold a phone, never given my password to anyone except my family. I backed out of setup and went to the settings. Under Wi-Fi, it showed my network with the word connected under it. I tapped on it. It showed the connection details, IP address, signal strength, and under security it said saved. Saved. I felt this weird pressure in my head, like when you stand up too fast. I tried to convince myself that maybe the guy lived near me at some point. Maybe the phone had connected to my network before I bought it somehow. But my house isn't near apartments or stores. It's on a quiet street with only 6 houses. You would have to be parked directly outside to even see the network. I walked into the living room slowly, holding the phone like it might explode. The router was blinking normally. Nothing weird there. I flipped it off and waited. The Wi-Fi symbol on the phone disappeared. I turned the router back on. Within seconds, without me touching anything, the symbol came back, connected again. I didn't have a password. I started checking the phone deeper. In the Wi-Fi settings, there was an option to forget network. I tapped it. It disconnected. I rescanned for networks. My network showed up again in the list, secured. I tapped it. No password screen. It connected instantly. That's when I started thinking about how phones actually save networks. They store credentials in memory, which means this phone had my Wi-Fi password stored inside it before I even touched it. I hadn't logged into anything yet. No cloud account, no data transfer. It was fresh from the reset screen. I backed out and checked the phone info. It showed it had been factory reset earlier that day. I sat back down on my bed and tried to breathe normally. I decided to check the gallery. Even though it was supposed to be wiped, sometimes stuff lingers. The gallery was empty. But when I opened the file manager, there was a folder labeled System Cache. Inside it were a few thumbnail files, tiny images. I tapped one. It opened blurry at first, then sharpened. It was my house. Not from the front, from the side, like someone standing near the fence between my yard and the neighbors. I felt my stomach twist. I scrolled to the next one. My backyard. The swing set that's been there since I was a kid. Another one. My bedroom window. Taken from outside at night. The curtains were closed, but you could see light bleeding around the edges. I dropped the phone onto my bed like it burned me. My brain started running through every possible explanation. Maybe it wasn't my house. Maybe it just looked similar. But the crack in the concrete near the fence was there. The dent in the gutter above my window was there. Small details you wouldn't notice unless you lived here. I picked the phone up again slowly. I checked the file details. The photos were dated over the past 2 weeks. Some during the day. Some late at night. My hands felt cold. I opened the browser history next. It had been cleared mostly, but there were a few entries that didn't make sense. Searches for my street name. Searches for my full name. My social media pages. I felt like I was going to throw up. The guy in the parking lot. I tried to picture his face again. Had I seen him before? At the store, around town. I couldn't place him. I checked the contacts list. Empty. But when I tapped on emergency contacts, there was one number saved. No name. Just a number. I didn't recognize it. I backed out and opened the Notes app. There was one note. Just a few lines. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't anything dramatic. It was a schedule. Times written next to days. Monday, 8:30 p.m. Wednesday, 6:15 p.m. Friday, 11 o'clock p.m. Next to some of them were short words. Lights off. Car gone. Home. My throat felt tight. Those times lined up with when I usually got home from work, when I left for the gym, when my parents were out of town last weekend. It was like someone had been tracking my movements, using this phone, and now it was in my room, connected to my Wi-Fi. I suddenly thought about something worse. If the phone could auto-connect to my network, that means at some point it was close enough to connect before, which means whoever had it was near my house. More than once. I went back to the Wi-Fi settings and looked at advanced options. There was a section that showed previously connected networks. Only one was listed. Mine. No coffee shops. No other houses, just mine. Like this phone existed solely to connect here. I turned it off completely. Then I unplugged my router. I sat in silence for a long time, just staring at the black screen. After maybe 10 minutes, I powered the phone back on without turning the router back on. It loaded to the home screen. No connection symbol. But then a notification popped up. Mobile hotspot connected. I don't have a hotspot. I never set one up. The phone showed it was connected to a network with a random string of letters. Signal strength full. I walked to my window slowly and moved the curtain a tiny bit. Across the street, parked between two cars, was a dark setting. Engine off. Lights off. But I could see the faint glow of the screen inside. I didn't wait. I grabbed the phone, ran to the bathroom, and smashed it against the tile floor as hard as I could. The screen cracked. I hit it again. And again. Until the glass splintered and the casing split. I don't know if that did anything. I don't know if whoever set it up already got what they wanted. The car across the street drove away a few minutes later. I changed the Wi-Fi password that night, long and random, reset the router fully. I never told my parents the full story, just said the phone was broken and I needed a new one. Sometimes late at night, when my house is quiet and my phone is charging at my desk, I think about how easily that one connected. No hesitation. Like it had been waiting to come back.
Hey guys, really sorry to disturb you, but if you're enjoying the stories up until this point, please smash that like button. That's all I'm asking for you guys. Let's break some records this year. Now back to the stories.
I used to think meeting in a grocery store parking lot meant safe. Bright lights, cameras, people coming and going with carts full of cereal and paper towels. Public enough that nothing bad could really happen. That's what everyone says, right? Meet somewhere busy. Daytime. Don't go alone if you can help it. I went alone. It was for a gaming console. Not even new. Just used with 2 controllers and 3 games. $200. Cheaper than anywhere else I'd seen. The pictures looked fine. Nothing blurry. Nothing staged weird. The seller said he didn't want people coming to his house and preferred to meet at the grocery store off Highway 9. That store is always packed, even at night. We agreed on 7:30 p.m. I got there a little early because I'm like that. I hate being late. The sky was already dark, but the parking lot was lit up like a stadium. Tall light poles buzzing softly. Rows of cars reflecting white and yellow. Carts rolling across asphalt. It felt normal. I parked near the front, close to the entrance. I texted him that I was there. Told him what my car looked like. He didn't respond right away. I waited maybe 2 minutes, scrolling through my phone. Then it buzzed. I can see you. Warmer. I stared at the screen. At first, I thought he was joking, like playing some kind of weird hot and cold game to find each other. I looked up from my phone and scanned a lot. Cars. People walking. A woman loading groceries into her trunk. A kid pushing a cart too fast. Nothing stood out. I texted back asking where he was parked. No reply. My phone buzzed again. You're close. Warmer. That's when my chest tightened. I turned in my seat and looked behind me. Nothing but a pickup truck parked 2 spaces back, windows tinted. I looked left, a minivan. Right, empty space. I told myself maybe he was inside the store watching through the glass doors. I stepped out of my car slowly, phone in hand. The air smelled like asphalt and fried chicken from the deli inside. I pretended to check my tire like I wasn't nervous. Another buzz. Turn around. I spun immediately. Nobody was standing directly behind me. But across the lot near the cart return, someone was leaning against a car. Too far to see clearly. Just a shape. My heart started pounding so loud it felt like it was in my ears. I typed asking what car he was in. The reply came almost instantly. Warmer. I realized something then. He wasn't trying to help me find him. He was enjoying this. I got back into my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking a little now. I told myself to calm down. Maybe it's just some awkward guy trying to be funny. Another message. Blue sedan. Closer. I drive a blue sedan. My mouth went dry. I didn't put that in the listing. I only said compact car. I looked at the rearview mirror. The pickup behind me. Dark inside. Could be anyone in there. I looked toward the grocery store entrance. People were walking in and out, automatic doors sliding open and shut. I felt exposed sitting there. My phone buzzed again. Almost there. I wanted to leave. Just start the engine and go. But part of me felt frozen, like if I moved too fast, something would happen. I decided to test something. I turned my headlights off. A few seconds passed. Then my phone buzzed. Better. I felt this cold rush go through me. He wasn't guessing. He was watching in real time. I slowly turned my head and scanned every car within view, trying to see a movement, any phone screen glow. The pickup behind me suddenly turned its engine on. My heart nearly stopped, but it just backed out and drove away. I almost felt relief. Then another buzz. Not that one. I felt like my brain couldn't keep up anymore. If it wasn't the truck, then where? I looked to my left again. The minivan. Family inside. I could see a little girl in the back seat. Not that. My phone buzzed again. Check your mirrors. I froze. I didn't want to look. But I did. In the side mirror on the passenger side, I could see a sliver of the car parked next to me. I hadn't noticed when it pulled in. Dark gray sedan, windows tinted heavily. I hadn't heard it. I slowly shifted in my seat to get a better angle. The car was parked just slightly behind mine, angled enough that the driver's seat lined up with my rear passenger window. Another buzz. Warmer. I couldn't see inside the gray sedan. The windows were too dark, but I felt it, that feeling of being directly watched. My hands moved on their own. I started the engine. Before I could put it in reverse, my phone buzzed again. Don't. My entire body locked up. How would he know I started the car? I looked at the gray sedan. No movement. Another message. I just want to see how long you stay. That didn't make sense. Stay where? I checked the doors again. Locked. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? Some guy is texting you weird stuff in a parking lot. Another buzz. You're getting colder. I realized something. I wasn't the only one being watched. Whoever this was could see my car clearly, but that meant they had a clear view of me too, which means they were positioned directly behind or beside me. I leaned slightly to the right and glanced at the passenger side mirror again. This time I caught something. A faint glow inside the gray sedan. A phone screen lighting up. My breath got shallow. Another buzz. Finally. I didn't wait. I slammed the car into reverse and hit the gas hard. Tires squealed. I didn't even check fully behind me. I just backed out fast and shifted into drive. As I sped toward the exit, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The gray sedan pulled out immediately. Followed me. I ran the first yellow light I saw. Barely made it. The gray car followed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might black out. I turned sharply into a side street without signaling. So did he. I drove through a neighborhood I didn't know well. Narrow streets, parked cars on both sides. I kept turning randomly. Left, right again. Every time I checked the mirror, he was still there. Not speeding, not honking, just following at a steady distance. My phone buzzed again. You're fun. I almost threw it out the window. I decided to head somewhere crowded. I spotted a fast food place ahead with a drive-through line wrapped around the building. I pulled into the lot and parked near the entrance. The gray sedan slowed. For a second, I thought he would pull in too. Instead, it drove past slowly. As it passed, I saw the driver. A man, maybe mid-30s, face calm, one hand on the wheel, the other holding his phone up slightly. He was smiling. Not big, just small. Then he kept driving. My phone buzzed one last time. Colder. Then nothing. I sat in that parking lot for almost 20 minutes before I felt safe enough to move. The listing was gone when I checked later. Deleted. I never saw that gray sedan again. But every time I park somewhere at night now, especially under bright lights, I check every mirror twice before I step out. Because sometimes the safest place isn't safe at all. I've been a lot of dumb things for quick money, but this one still doesn't sit right in my head. The ad was simple. Help wanted. Moving furniture. $150 for 2 hours. Cash. Same day. No company name, just a phone number and an address. I was broke enough that I didn't care. Rent was due in 3 days and my job had cut my hours again. The address was for an apartment complex near the river, the older kind with brown brick walls and narrow balconies. I'd driven past it before, but never really looked at it. It always seemed half empty, like people moved in and out fast. I texted the number and got a reply almost immediately. 4th floor. Apartment 4 bits. Door will be unlocked. Just come up. That part should have made me pause. Door unlocked. No greeting. No instructions about what to move exactly. But $150 is $150. I parked in the back lot. Only 3 cars were there. The building itself looked tired. Chipped paint around the entrance. The hallway smelled like old carpet and something metallic underneath it. The elevator was out of order. There was a handwritten sign taped crookily to the wall, so I took the stairs. Each step echoed too loudly. The building felt hollow, like most of the apartments were empty. When I reached the 4th floor, the hallway lights were dimmer than the ones below. One of them flickered every few seconds. 4 bits was at the very end. The door was slightly open, just as the text said. I knocked anyway. No answer. I pushed it open slowly. The apartment was empty. Not messy empty. Not recently moved out empty. Just empty. No couch. No table. No boxes. Bare floors. Bare walls. And in the middle of the living room, sitting alone on the hardwood, was a large trunk. It was old. Dark wood reinforced with metal bands. Heavy looking. About the size of a small coffee table, but taller. There was a thick padlock on the front. I stood there for a full minute just staring at it. This had to be a joke. I checked my phone. No new messages. I stepped inside. The air was stale. No curtains on the windows. Sunlight came in flat and gray. I walked around the trunk slowly. It had scratches on the top like it had been dragged before. The metal corners were dented. I texted the number asking what exactly needed moving. No reply. I waited maybe 2 minutes. Then my phone buzzed. Just that. Nothing else. I typed back asking if the trunk was it. Another buzz. Yes. That was it. 1 word. I looked at the trunk again. It had to weigh a lot. I nudged it with my foot. It didn't move easily. I crouched down and tried lifting one side. Heavy, way heavier than it looked. I figured maybe the plan was to move it downstairs into a truck. Maybe the guy was running late. I texted asking where the truck was. The reply came slower this time. You'll see. That answer didn't help at all. I stood up and wiped my hands on my jeans. The apartment felt too quiet, like the air itself was waiting. I leaned down again and grabbed the metal handles on each side of the trunk. I tried lifting properly this time, bending my knees. It barely budged. Whatever was inside made it feel solid, not hollow like clothes or books. I was about to text again when I felt it. A faint vibration under my palms. I froze. It was subtle at first, like the kind of vibration you feel when a phone is on silent on a table. I pulled my hands away slowly. The trunk vibrated again. Just once. Then still. I stared at it, trying to convince myself I imagined it. Maybe the building shook. Maybe a truck drove by outside. I held my breath and leaned closer. For a few seconds, nothing. Then it happened again. A low, steady hum through the wood. This time longer. My stomach twisted. I stepped back. The vibration stopped. I looked around the apartment like someone else might be standing there watching me, but it was just me and the trunk. I texted the number again. What's in it? No reply. The trunk vibrated harder this time. Not a quick buzz. More like something shifting inside, a dull thud against the inner wall. I felt cold all over. My brain started running through possibilities. Maybe it's a machine. Maybe something battery-powered. Maybe a generator or something weird. But why lock it? And why not tell me? I crouched down and put my ear near the wood, even though every part of me didn't want to. For a second, nothing. Then I heard it. A faint scraping sound from inside. Not mechanical. Irregular. Like something dragging lightly across wood. I stood up so fast I almost lost my balance. My phone buzzed again. Did you feel that? My hand started shaking. I typed back asking what was inside. This time there was a longer pause. The vibration came back before the message did. Stronger. The trunk shifted maybe an inch across the floor. I backed up until I hit the wall. Then my phone buzzed. Just move it. That was it. No explanation. Just move it. The trunk vibrated again, harder, and one of the metal bands rattled against the wood. Whatever was inside was not small. I walked slowly toward the apartment door, keeping my eyes on the trunk. Another buzz. Don't leave. I didn't reply. The trunk slammed once from the inside. A heavy impact that echoed in the empty apartment. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like it filled the room. I grabbed the door handle. Another vibration. Then something different. A sound that didn't belong. Not scraping. Not mechanical. A muffled thud followed by what sounded like a low, strained breath. I can't even fully describe it. Not clear enough to be obvious, but not random either. My brain refused to process it. My phone buzzed again. Almost time. That's when I stopped thinking. I opened the door and ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, skipping steps. My legs felt like they might give out, but they didn't. I didn't look back. When I reached the parking lot, I fumbled my keys and dropped them once. Picked them up and got in my car. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed again. I didn't check it. I just drove. I didn't stop until I was miles away, parked behind a gas station with my hands still gripping the steering wheel. When I finally looked at my phone, there were 3 new messages. Where are you? You were so close. And the last one. It doesn't like being alone. I blocked the number. Later that night, out of some stupid curiosity, I searched the address online. Apartment 4 Bits wasn't listed for rent. Actually, the whole building was scheduled for demolition next month. Most units had been cleared out already. I don't know what was in that trunk. I don't know who was texting me. I just know that when I think about that vibration, that scraping from inside, it doesn't feel like a machine. And sometimes when my phone buzzes unexpectedly, I remember how it felt standing in that empty apartment with nothing but a locked trunk in the middle of the floor. And I wonder if someone else answered that ad after me. I didn't even want the mirror in the first place. It came with the apartment when I moved in. Tall, narrow, framed in dark wood that didn't match anything else in my room. It leaned against the wall across from my bed, so every time I opened my eyes in the morning I saw myself staring back. At night it was worse. If I forgot to turn on a lamp and just used my phone, the screen would light up my face, and I'd catch movement in the reflection that was really just me shifting. It made the room feel crowded. So when I decided to redecorate a little, it was the first thing to go. I took a few pictures in the afternoon, made sure my bed was made and the background looked clean, listed it for $40. Solid wood frame, full length, no cracks. I didn't think about it after that. A guy messaged me within an hour, said he could pick it up that evening. Cash. He came around 6 p.m. Normal looking, maybe early 30s. Quiet. Didn't make much small talk. He inspected the mirror closely, running his fingers along the edges like he was checking for something specific. I helped him carry it down the stairs to his truck. It was heavier than it looked. Awkward to hold because of the size. When we slid it into the back, I noticed him angle it so the reflective side faced inward toward the truck bed wall, like he didn't want it reflecting the street. I thought that was kind of strange, but whatever. He handed me the $40 and left. I went back upstairs feeling lighter. My room looked bigger without that tall dark shape in the corner. That night, around 11:30, I was in bed scrolling on my phone when it buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I opened it. It's still showing you. I frowned at the screen. I didn't recognize the number at first. Then I realized it must be the guy who bought the mirror. I typed back asking what he meant. No response for a minute. Then another message. It's not showing my room. Just you. I felt a small knot in my stomach. I told him that didn't make sense. That's just a mirror. He replied quickly this time. I know what a mirror does. I'm not in it. You are. I stared at those words way longer than I want to admit. I glanced automatically toward the corner where the mirror used to be. Empty wall. I told myself he was messing with me, maybe trying to be funny in a weird way. I asked if he was serious. He sent a picture. My chest tightened. It was the mirror propped up against a wall in what looked like a different apartment. Different paint color. Different floor. And in the reflection, clear as anything, was my room. My bed. My desk. My closed bedroom door. And me. Sitting on my bed holding my phone. I dropped my phone onto the blanket. My heart started pounding so hard it felt like it was shaking the mattress. I looked around my room. Everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. I grabbed my phone again and zoomed into the picture he sent. It wasn't a screenshot. It wasn't edited badly. The lighting matched the angle of his room. You could see the edge of his couch reflected behind the image of my room. But the reflection itself was my room. As if the mirror had never left. My lamp was on in the picture. In real life, my lamp was off. I slowly turned my head toward the lamp on my nightstand. It was definitely off. In the photo, it was glowing softly. I felt cold all over. Another message came in. Why are you still in it? I didn't know how to respond. I took a picture of my room right then and sent it to him. I told him the mirror was gone, that it was in his apartment. He replied almost instantly. Look behind you. I didn't want to, but I did. Slowly. My bedroom door was closed. The wall was bare. Nothing there. I looked back at my phone. Another picture. The mirror again. This time closer. And in the reflection of my room, I was no longer holding my phone. My hands were down at my sides. But in reality, I was gripping my phone so hard my fingers hurt. I felt like my brain was splitting in half trying to understand it. I snapped another picture of my room and sent it. I told him to stop messing with me. He replied with just 3 words. I'm not. Then another picture. In this one, the reflection of my room looked darker. The door behind the version of me in the mirror was slightly open. In real life, my door was fully closed. I stared at it. My breathing got shallow. I turned slowly toward my real door. It was still closed. My phone buzzed again. She's moving. My stomach dropped. I typed asking who. No answer. Another picture came in. The mirror again. In the reflection of my room, the version of me was still sitting on the bed. But behind her in the doorway, there was a shape. Tall. Just barely visible in the darkness of the hall. I felt like I couldn't swallow. I looked at my real door. Still closed. I stood up slowly from my bed and walked toward it. My legs felt weak. I placed my hand on the knob and listened. Nothing. Silence. I opened it fast. The hallway outside my room was empty. Dark, but empty. I flipped the light on. Nothing there. I looked back at my phone. Another message. Don't open it. I felt like I might throw up. I closed the door again and locked it. My phone buzzed. Picture. This time the mirror showed my room empty. My bed. My desk. But no me. And the door in the reflection was wide open. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I looked down at myself. I was there. In my room. I raised my hand slowly. In the next picture he sent, the version of me was standing at the foot of the bed. But I hadn't moved. I felt tears in my eyes and I hated that. I told him to get rid of it, to break it. He replied that he tried, and sent a photo of the mirror with cracks across the surface. But the reflection of my room was still clear between the cracks, and the version of me in it was closer to the glass. Closer than before. Almost like she was leaning toward it. My phone buzzed again. She's not matching you anymore. I couldn't breathe right. I took the mirror off the wall in my closet, the small one I used for my hair, and held it up in front of me. My reflection looked normal, perfectly in sync. I turned it side to side. Normal. My phone buzzed. She's smiling now. I slowly looked at the last picture he sent. The cracked mirror in his apartment. My room in reflection. And the version of me standing there, staring straight ahead. Mouth curved slightly up. In real life, my face felt frozen. I wasn't smiling. I turned the screen off. I didn't open any more messages that night. I pushed my dresser in front of my bedroom door and slept with the light on. The next morning, there were no new texts. I checked the thread. All the pictures were gone. Deleted. The number was no longer in service. I never found the listing again. And even though that tall mirror is long gone from my room, sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I have this horrible thought that somewhere in some other apartment, there's a cracked mirror still showing my room. And something in it that looks almost like me. I thought the worst thing about renting a cheap cabin in the middle of nowhere would be bugs or bad plumbing. I did not expect a handwritten warning that looked like it was left by someone who didn't make it out. I found a listing at 2 a.m. on a random Tuesday when I couldn't sleep. Cheap weekend cabin rental, $85 a night, lake accessed, total privacy. The pictures showed pine trees, a small dock, and a wooden cabin that looked like it leaned slightly to one side. It wasn't fancy, but that was the point. I needed to get away for a couple days. Clear my head. No roommates. No traffic. Just quiet. The owner replied fast. Said it was available Friday through Sunday. Cash only. Key would be in a lockbox by the door. No need to meet. I didn't think too hard about that. Lots of rentals do self-check-in. The drive up there took almost 3 hours. Once I left the highway, the roads got narrow and cracked. No streetlights. Barely any houses. My give signal dropped twice before it finally recalculated and told me to turn onto a dirt road that looked like it hadn't been graded in years. The trees were tall and packed tight together. Branches scraped lightly against my car as I drove. When I finally saw the cabin, it looked exactly like the photos. Small porch. 2 windows in front. A metal chimney pipe sticking out the roof. The lake was visible through the trees, gray and still. It was quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful, just empty. I got the key from the lockbox and stepped inside. The air smelled like wood and something damp underneath. Not mold exactly, just old. The cabin had one main room with a couch, small table, and a wood stove. A narrow hallway led to a bathroom and a bedroom in the back. Everything looked worn but clean enough. On the table near the couch was a thick guest book. I smiled at that. I always liked reading those when I stayed places. Little notes from families about fishing trips and sunsets. I tossed my bag onto the couch and flipped open the guest book. The first few pages were normal. Short entries. Beautiful view. Great fishing. Peaceful stay. Then about halfway through, the tone changed. The handwriting got messier. One entry just said, "Do not open the door after midnight." No explanation. The next page had something similar. "Ignore the knocking." Another said, "If you hear your name, stay in bed." I frowned and flipped through more pages. Multiple entries repeating the same warning in different words. Don't answer after 12. Don't look through the window. Don't unlock it no matter what. I felt the tight feeling in my chest start up. Some of the dates were recent, just a few months ago. One entry near the back caught my eye because the writing pressed so hard into the paper it almost tore through. It said, "We thought it was a prank. We thought it was someone lost. It isn't." I stared at that line for a long time. I told myself it was probably a local legend thing. Maybe kings come out here and mess with renters. Maybe the owner never bothered to replace the book. I closed it and tried to laugh it off. The rest of the evening was fine. I walked down to the lake, skipped a few rocks, made a simple dinner on the stove. The sun went down fast behind the trees and the cabin got dark quickly. By 10 p.m., it was completely black outside. No streetlights, no neighboring houses in sight, just trees and water. I locked the front door and checked the small windows. They had thin curtains but no blinds. Around 11:30, I got into bed in the back room. The mattress was thin and creaked when I moved. I lay there scrolling on my phone until I lost signal completely. Midnight came and went without anything happening. I felt kind of stupid for being tense. Then at 12:17 a.m., there was a knock. 3 slow taps on the front door. Not loud. Not frantic. Just steady. My whole body froze. I held my breath. Maybe it was the wood settling. Maybe something hit the door. Then it happened again. 3 knocks. Evenly spaced. My heart started pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I stared at the bedroom doorway, which opened into the narrow hallway leading to the main room. I told myself not to move. The guest book flashed in my head. Do not open the door after midnight. Another set of 3 knocks. This time slightly harder. I slid slowly out of bed and stepped into the hallway. The cabin floor creaked under my weight and I winced. The knocking stopped. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then something else. A faint, dragging sound across the porch boards. Like someone shifting their weight. I reached the main room and stood there in the dark. The moonlight through the front windows cast pale shapes across the floor. I could see the outline of the door. Another knock. Closer together this time. Impatient. My brain started making excuses. Maybe someone's car broke down. Maybe they saw the light on earlier. Then I remembered how isolated the road was, how long it had been since I saw another vehicle. My phone had no signal. I took a step closer to the door. Then it happened. A voice. Soft. Right outside. Saying my name. Not shouting. Just enough to hear through the wood. My blood felt like it turned to ice. I had not told anyone where I was going except one friend, and she did not know the exact address. The voice said my name again. Closer to the door this time. I felt tears in my eyes and I hated that. I backed away slowly. The knocking started again. Harder now. Faster. Like whoever was out there was losing patience. The doorknob rattled once. I almost screamed. Then silence. Complete silence. I stood there for what felt like forever. Then slowly I heard footsteps moving away across the porch. One step at a time. Then nothing. I didn't move for at least 10 minutes. When I finally forced myself to step toward the window, I didn't pull the curtain back fully. Just a tiny gap. The porch was empty, but the dirt in front of it looked disturbed, like something heavy had been standing there. I went back to the bedroom and locked the door even though it barely latched. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., the knocking came back. This time at the bedroom window. 2 sharp taps on the glass. I couldn't breathe. The window was too small to climb through, but that didn't matter. Another tap. Then a faint scrape against the glass. I curled up under the blanket and covered my ears. The tapping continued for a few minutes, then stopped. Just before dawn, I must have drifted off for a few minutes because when I opened my eyes again, it was light outside. Quiet. Normal. I packed my bag fast. Before leaving, I looked at the guest book one more time. I flicked to a blank page and wrote one line. It knows your name. I didn't stay the second night. I drove straight home without stopping. Later that week, I checked the listing again. It was still up. Same pictures. Same price. No mention of midnight knocks. Sometimes I think about that voice outside the door. How it sounded calm. Familiar almost. And I wonder how many people read those warnings and still decided to check who was knocking. I should have left the second they said it like it was normal. I was broke again, which seemed to be a pattern in my life. Scrolling through Craigslist at midnight, looking for anything that paid cash. The babysitting ad didn't look weird at first. Friday night, 6 p.m. to midnight, $200. One child. Must be comfortable with cameras. That last line felt odd, that I figured they meant a nanny cam or something. The house was in a newer neighborhood on the edge of town. Big houses close together, fresh sidewalks, identical mailboxes. The kind of place where people definitely live comfortably. When I rang the doorbell, the parents answered together. Both looked tired in a way that wasn't just from work. More like they hadn't slept properly in weeks. Polite though. Calm voices. Clean house behind them. I stepped inside, and the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. No toys scattered around. No cartoons playing. No baby sounds at all. The mom led me into the living room where a small table had a baby monitor sitting on it. The screen was already on. Black and white view of a crib in a dark room upstairs. I looked around, waiting to see a toddler run past or hear something from another room. Nothing. They handed me the monitor. The dad explained that their child would not be visible in person, only on camera. He said it the same way someone would say the baby is a light sleeper or allergic to peanuts. I laughed at first because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. They both just looked at me, waiting for me to process it. I asked what they meant. The mom said their child appears only through digital devices, baby monitor, security cameras, phones, but not to the naked eye. I stood there holding the monitor, staring at the tiny screen. In the crib on the screen, I could see a small shape under a blanket, slight movement like breathing. I glanced toward the staircase. I couldn't see or hear anything upstairs. I told myself this had to be some kind of test. Maybe they were artists. Maybe this was some performance thing. But then the mom pointed at the screen and said that was their child. I looked again. The shape shifted slightly. A tiny arm moved out from under the blanket. I felt a weird chill crawl up my arms. I agreed to stay. I don't know why. $200 maybe, or curiosity, or the way they said it like it was something they had gotten used to. They gave me basic instructions. If the baby cries, just watch the monitor. Do not go into the room. The crying will stop on its own. Do not try to touch what you cannot see. That line stuck with me. They left at 6:15. I was alone in the house. The living room was too tidy. Couch pillows lined up perfectly. Framed photos on the wall, but every picture of the child was blurred, like motion blur. You could see the parents clearly, but where the child should be, it looked distorted. I sat on the couch with the monitor in my hands. The screen showed the crib from a corner angle, black and white, night vision dots faintly glowing. The baby moved, rolled slightly to the side. I heard nothing from upstairs. Complete silence. I turned the volume on the monitor higher. No static, no breathing sounds, just silence. Around 7 p.m., the baby on the screen sat up. I felt my heart skip. It was small, maybe 2 years old, hair thin and sticking up. It looked directly at the camera. I looked toward the ceiling, toward where the nursery would be. Nothing. No footsteps. No shifting floorboards. On the monitor, the child tilted its head slightly, then slowly raised one hand and pressed it against the inside of the crib rail. I stared at the screen so hard my eyes hurt. I stood up and walked to the bottom of the stairs. I could see the hallway upstairs, lights off. I listened carefully. Nothing. I took one step up. The monitor in my hand flickered. The image distorted for a second. I stepped back down. The picture stabilized. The child was still sitting in the crib, staring. Around 8 p.m., the screen glitched again. Horizontal lines flashed across it. For a split second, the child was closer to the camera, like it had moved without crossing the space. I checked the timestamp on the monitor. No change. I swallowed and forced myself to sit back down. At 9:12 p.m., the baby began to cry. A silent cry on the screen. Mouth open wide. Eyes squeezed shut. But in the house, there was no sound. The monitor speaker didn't pick up anything either. Just visual crying. I felt tears in my own eyes from the tension. I remembered their instructions. Do not go into the room. The crying went on for about 3 minutes, then stopped suddenly. The child looked straight at the camera again and smiled. Not a normal smile. Too wide. I don't know how to explain it without sounding dramatic. It just looked wrong. Too many teeth for that age. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. A message from the mom asking if everything was fine. I typed back yes. She replied good. Then added remember not to enter the room. I stared at that message. Around 10 p.m., the image on the monitor shifted again. The camera angle seemed lower somehow. The crib bars looked taller. The child was standing now, hands gripping the top rail. I stood up slowly. I don't know what came over me, but I started walking up the stairs, one step at a time. The monitor in my hand crackled softly. The image began to pixelate. The child's face blurred. I reached the top of the stairs. The nursery door was slightly open. The room was dark inside. I pushed the door open fully. The crib was there. Empty. Blanket flat. No child. I felt dizzy. I looked down at the monitor. The child was still there on the screen, standing in the crib, staring directly at me. But the angle was wrong. The camera view showed the doorway. And in the doorway, there was me, standing there holding the monitor. I looked up from the screen to the empty crib, back to the monitor. The child slowly turned its head toward the camera, which meant it was turning toward me in real life, even though there was nothing there. I felt something brush past my leg, like a small body squeezing by. I gasped and spun around. Nothing visible, but the air felt different, colder. I looked at the monitor again. The crib was empty now. The camera showed only the room. But behind me on the screen, in the doorway reflection of the dark hallway, there was a small shape, standing close. I dropped the monitor. The screen cracked slightly, but stayed on. I ran downstairs, grabbed my bag, ran out the front door. I didn't lock it. I didn't text them. I just drove. My phone buzzed twice while I was at a red light, but I didn't check. When I finally looked later, there was only one message. Thank you for watching him. I blocked the number. The listing was gone the next day. Sometimes when I'm alone and my phone camera glitches or my laptop screen flickers, I think about that crib. About the way the child only existed through a lens. And I make sure I'm not holding any device up in front of me longer than I need to. I always thought the creepiest thing you could find in a storage unit would be something illegal. Cash, weapons, maybe something wrapped in plastic that smells bad. I never thought it would be my own face staring back at me from a box that wasn't mine. I wasn't even looking for trouble. I just got into those storage unit auctions after watching too many videos online. People finding old comic collections or vintage guitars and flipping them for easy money. When I saw a listing on Craigslist for a private sale, Unit 317, contents unknown, $300 cash, I figured why not. Worst case, I'd lose some money. Best case, I score something valuable. The seller said the unit had been abandoned and he didn't want to deal with it. Meet at the facility Saturday morning. Bring your own lock after purchase. The storage place was on the edge of an industrial park. Chain link fence topped with barbed wire. Rows of metal doors in faded blue and orange. The kind of place that looks exactly the same in every town. Unit 317 was near the back. The seller was already there when I pulled up. Mid-40s maybe. Baseball cap pulled low. Didn't say much. Just unlocked the unit and rolled the metal door up halfway so I could peek inside. It looked boring at first glance. A few cardboard boxes stacked neatly. One metal filing cabinet. A plastic bin. No furniture. No obvious treasure. I asked if I could look closer. He shrugged and rolled the door up fully. The air inside was stale but not rotten, just trapped. I stepped in and glanced through the top box. Old magazines, random paperwork, nothing exciting. I figured I could at least resell the filing cabinet and break even. I handed him the $300. He counted it quickly, nodded, and left without another word. I watched him drive away, feeling a small weird twist in my stomach that I ignored. Once I was alone, I rolled the door down halfway for shade and started going through everything properly. The plastic bin had old clothes, mostly men's, average sizes. The filing cabinet was locked. I shook it lightly, heavy. I checked the boxes more carefully. The second box down was heavier than the others. When I opened it, I saw folders. Dozens of manila folders stacked tightly. Each one had a label on the tab. The first one I picked up had my first name on it, spelled correctly. I froze. I told myself it was coincidence. Common name, maybe. I pulled the folder out and opened it. Inside were photographs. Printed. Glossy. The first photo was me at maybe 8 years old, standing in front of my elementary school. I remember that day, picture day, I had that same red hoodie on. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the unit. I flipped to the next photo. Me at 12. Sitting on the curb outside my parents' house, laughing at something off camera. I dropped the folder. My hands started shaking so badly the papers slid out and scattered across the concrete floor. I crouched down and grabbed another folder from the box. This one had a year written next to my name. 2009. Inside were more photos. Me walking home from school. Me getting into my mom's car. Me sitting on a park bench. None of them posed. All taken from a distance. Like someone hiding. I felt dizzy. I grabbed another folder. 2013. Me at the mall with friends. Me outside a movie theater. Me standing in line at a fast food place. All from different angles. Always slightly zoomed. Never looking at the camera. I sat back against the wall of the storage unit and just stared at the open box. There were so many folders, each labeled with different years, all the way up to last year. My throat felt tight. I grabbed one from the top. 2022. Inside were pictures of me in my current apartment complex. Me carrying groceries. Me unlocking my car. Me sitting on my balcony. The angle in one photo made it clear the person was across the street, maybe inside another building. I felt sick. I checked the dates on the backs of some photos. They were recent. Some just months old. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit on the floor. I looked around the storage unit like someone might be standing there watching me go through their collection. But it was just rows of metal doors in silence. I forced myself to check the rest of the box. Underneath the folders was a small notebook. Black cover. I opened it. Inside were handwritten notes. Short entries. Locations. Times. Descriptions of what I was wearing. Who I was with. One entry mentioned the first car I ever owned, the color, the dent on the back bumper. Another described a girl I dated for 2 months in high school. Details no stranger should know. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. I checked the filing cabinet next. I pulled hard on the top drawer. It didn't budge. I looked around for something to pry it open. I found a loose metal rod near the wall and jammed it into the gap, forcing it until the lock snapped. The drawer slid open slowly. Inside were more folders. But these were labeled differently. Potential. Neighbors. Work. My stomach twisted. I pulled out one folder under neighbors. Inside were photos of people in my apartment building. My upstairs neighbor walking her dog. The guy across the hall carrying packages. I realized then this wasn't just about me. This person had been documenting multiple people. But I had the most folders. I checked the bottom drawer. It was filled with camera equipment. Lenses. Memory cards. A digital camera. I picked up one of the memory cards and stared at it. I thought about taking everything straight to the police. But then something hit me. The seller. He knew what was in here. He had to. Why sell it so cheap? Why not throw it away? I ran out of the unit and looked around the lot. Empty. His car was gone. I pulled my phone out and searched the number he had used. No results. I went back inside and started flipping through the newest folder again. One photo made my stomach drop even further. It was from that morning. Me driving into the storage facility parking lot. Clear shot of my face through the windshield, taken from a distance. Before I'd even met him. My hands felt numb. That means someone was already here watching. I looked around the lot again. Every metal door looked the same. I felt like eyes were on me from behind one of them. I stuffed as many folders as I could back into the box and slammed the storage door down. I didn't lock it. I just got in my car and drove. I didn't go home. I drove to a crowded shopping center and sat there trying to think. Whoever owned that unit had been tracking me for years, and they knew I would show up there that morning. because they photographed it. I don't know if the seller was the same person who took the pictures. I don't know if he knew I would be the one to buy it. All I know is that somewhere out there, someone had spent years building a collection of my life. And when I left that storage facility, I couldn't stop checking my rearview mirror. Because if there were folders going back that far, it means this didn't start recently. It started when I was a kid. And the scariest part isn't that I found those photos. It's that whoever took them let me walk away. I didn't think modeling for some random Craigslist photographer would be the thing that messed with my head for months, but here we are. I wasn't trying to become famous or anything. I just needed extra cash and thought maybe getting a few decent photos for social media wouldn't hurt. The ad said looking for male models, casual street style shoot, $250 for 2 hours. Portfolio building, outdoor locations. Nothing weird in the wording. No red flags that jumped out. I checked his profile. He had a basic website linked. Some landscape shots, a few portraits. Nothing creepy, just kind of average. We agreed to meet at an old train yard that had been converted into a public walking area. Lots of brick walls, rusted tracks, graffiti. People usually jog there during the day. We set it for late afternoon so the light would be better. When I got there, he was already setting up a tripod near one of the brick buildings. Mid-30s maybe. Thin, glasses, neutral clothes. Polite, but quiet. Didn't waste time with small talk. He explained the plan with simple hand gestures and short instructions. Stand here. Lean there. Look off to the side. Typical stuff. At first, everything felt normal. The sun was low enough to cast long shadows across the ground. I stood near a brick wall with faded paint peeling off. He adjusted the camera settings and started shooting. After maybe 10 minutes, he asked if I wanted to see how they were coming out. I walked over and he turned the camera screen toward me. The first photo looked good. Sharp focus. Decent lighting. Then I noticed something. Behind me, in the gap between two buildings, there was a figure. Tall, dark clothing, standing a few feet back. I frowned and asked if someone had walked through the shot. He glanced at the screen and shook his head slightly, said he hadn't seen anyone. I looked back toward where I had been standing. The space behind me was empty. No one there. I brushed it off. Maybe someone had walked by and I just didn't notice. He scrolled to the next photo. Different pose. Different angle. And there it was again. The same figure. Directly behind me. Closer this time. I felt that tight sensation in my chest. I turned around physically, scanning the yard. Nothing. Just a couple walking their dog way off in the distance. I looked back at the screen. In the third photo, the figure was clearer. Tall, face obscured by shadow, arms hanging at its sides. I felt like my stomach dropped through the ground. I asked him if he edited these. He said no, straight off the camera. He zoomed in. The figure was definitely there. Not blurry like motion. Solid. Standing just behind my shoulder. I laughed nervously and said maybe someone was photobombing. He didn't laugh. He just kept looking at the screen like he was trying to understand something. We decided to change spots. We moved closer to the tracks where there was more open space. No buildings right behind me this time. Nothing for someone to hide behind. I stood on the gravel with the track stretching into the distance. He took another series of shots. I felt uneasy now, like someone was watching, but I couldn't see them. After a few minutes, he motioned me over again. I walked to the camera slowly. In every single photo, the figure was there, directly behind me. Same distance. Same posture. But now, in the open space of the tracks, it was impossible for someone to be standing that close without me noticing. In one shot, it was so close it looked like it was almost touching my back. I swear I would have felt that. I turned around sharply. Nothing. I walked a few steps back and scanned the entire area. Completely empty behind me. I felt my breathing get heavier. He looked pale now. Not scared exactly, just confused. He flipped through the photos again. The figure appeared in every single one. Never in front. Never to the side. Always directly behind me. We decided to test something. He asked me to stand still while he moved around me, taking photos from different angles. If it was a camera glitch, Maybe the angle would change it. I stood there trying to ignore the feeling crawling up my spine. He circled me slowly, camera clicking every few seconds. When he showed me those shots, my legs felt weak. The figure had moved with me. No matter where the camera was positioned, it was always directly behind me from the camera's perspective, like it was attached to me. One step back. I tried to think logically. Maybe it was a double exposure glitch. Maybe something wrong with the sensor. But the rest of the image looked perfectly normal. Crisp. Detailed. Just with that one extra shape. In one close-up shot, you could almost make out a face. Not clear enough to describe. Just pale. I suddenly remembered something weird. A few nights before, I had felt like someone was standing behind me in my apartment kitchen. I turned around and no one was there. I brushed it off at the time. Now my skin felt tight all over. I asked him to take a photo of the space behind me without me in the frame. He did. Empty. No figure. Then I stepped back into position. Click. There it was again. Like it stepped in with me. I started feeling dizzy. I told him maybe we should stop. He nodded quickly. But before packing up, he took one last shot. Just one. When he showed me that final image, I felt like the ground tilted. The figure was no longer directly behind me. It was closer. Its head was slightly angled, like it was looking at my neck, and my own face in the photo looked different. My expression wasn't the same as I remembered. My mouth was slightly open, like I was about to say something. I don't remember doing that. I left fast after that. Told him to keep the money. I didn't want the photos. He offered to delete them. I watched him scroll through and erase every image. But as he deleted them, I noticed something else. In the preview thumbnails, the figure was still visible even after he hit delete, like it flickered for a second before disappearing. I went home feeling like someone was walking 2 inches behind me the entire time. When I unlocked my apartment door, I hesitated before stepping inside. I half expected to see someone standing in the hallway. Nothing. Just my empty place. I tried to forget about it. But later that night, I opened my phone's camera to take a random picture of my desk. I wasn't even thinking about the shoot. I snapped the photo and looked at it. And there it was. Faint. Right behind me. Just a shadow at first. But clearly shaped like a person. Standing exactly where it had been in every other photo. I didn't tell anyone. What would I even say? Sometimes when I'm brushing my teeth and I catch my reflection in the mirror, I don't look directly behind me anymore. I just focus on my own face. Because I don't want to see if there's someone standing there. Still one step behind. I always check the trunk. Always. My dad drilled that into me when I was a kid. If you're buying a used car, you check everything. Under the hood, under the seats, inside the trunk. You look for rust, leaks, weird smells. You make sure there's no hidden damage. I just didn't expect to find something that made my stomach drop so fast I almost couldn't breathe. The listing was basic. Older sedan, decent mileage, $2,800. Clean title, runs good, need gone this week. The photo showed a silver four-door parked in what looked like an empty lot. Nothing flashy, just practical. I needed a car bad. Mine had finally given out, and I was tired of asking friends for rides. $2,800 was just within reach if I emptied my savings. The seller suggested meeting at an old shopping center parking lot on the edge of town. Not completely abandoned, but half the stores were closed. A big sign that used to advertise a grocery store was faded and peeling. I got there around 5 p.m. The sun was still up but starting to dip. Long shadows across cracked asphalt. He was already there, leaning against the hood of the car. Mid-30s maybe. Baseball cap. Dark hoodie even though it wasn't that cold. Average build. Nothing about him screamed danger. Just another guy selling a car. He handed me the keys and said I could look it over. The exterior looked fine. Some minor scratches. Nothing crazy. Tires decent. I opened the driver door and checked the interior. Smelled like old air freshener and something metallic underneath it. Faint but noticeable. I sat in the seat, adjusted it, turned the key. Engine started smooth. I tested the radio, lights, windows, all working. Then I remembered the trunk. I stepped out and walked to the back of the car. He stayed near the front, watching but not hovering. I popped the trunk. It lifted slowly with a creak. At first glance, it looked empty. Dark carpet lining. Spare tire tucked under the panel. Then my eyes adjusted. Bolted into the metal floor of the trunk were 2 handcuffs. Real ones. Metal. Secured with thick bolts that went straight through the trunk floor. They weren't just sitting there. They were installed. I felt like my brain short-circuited for a second. I stared at them, trying to make sense of it. Maybe they were from some kind of security job. Maybe he transported equipment. But they were positioned in a way that made no sense for tools. Side by side. Just far enough apart to restrain wrists behind someone's back. I felt heat rush to my face. I glanced toward him. He was watching me. Expression neutral. Too neutral. I forced myself to act calm. I leaned down slightly like I was inspecting the spare tire, but my eyes kept going back to the cuffs. There were faint scratches around them, like they had been used. The carpet near the bolts was slightly darker in patches. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. I closed the trunk slowly and walked back toward him. I asked about the trunk. He shrugged and said the previous owner had strange hobbies. That answer didn't land right. I asked why he didn't remove them. He said he didn't have the tools. That was a lie. You don't accidentally sell a car with handcuffs bolted into the trunk and just forget about it. I told him I wanted to take it for a quick test drive. He nodded and handed me the keys again. I got into the driver's seat and locked the doors automatically out of habit. He moved to the passenger side like he planned to get in. I quickly told him I preferred to drive alone. He hesitated for a second too long, then stepped back. I pulled out of the lot, heart pounding. As I drove around the block, my mind kept replaying the image of those cuffs. Installed. Ready. I noticed something else then. The inside of the trunk release handle on the driver's side was missing. The small lever that usually pops the trunk from inside. Just a plastic hole where it should be. I felt my stomach twist again. I slowed down at a stop sign and glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing in the lot, watching the street, waiting. I drove a little farther than just around the block. I pulled into a gas station a few streets away and parked under bright lights. I got out and walked around the back of the car. I opened the trunk again. The handcuffs were still there, gleaming faintly in the light. I crouched down and looked closer at the bolts. They were clean, recent, not rusted like you'd expect if they'd been there for years. I looked at the interior lining near the back seats. There were faint scuff marks, like shoes scraping against it. My hands started shaking. I suddenly had this horrible thought. What if someone had been in that trunk recently? What if that metallic smell wasn't random? I slammed the trunk shut and got back in the car. I didn't go back to the shopping center. I drove straight to a busy police station a few miles away. I parked in front and sat there gripping the steering wheel. I thought about just leaving, pretending I never saw it. But I couldn't shake the image. I went inside and told them what I found. They followed me back out and inspected the trunk. Their faces changed when they saw it. One of them asked if the seller was still at the lot. I said probably. They told me to stay there. I watched through the glass doors as 2 patrol cars pulled out fast. I don't know exactly what happened next. They didn't update me fully. But later that night, an officer came back and asked me more questions. Apparently, the man was gone when they arrived. Car lot empty. Phone number disconnected. The license plate on the car didn't match the registration. Fake. They kept the car. Told me not to contact the seller again. I drove home in a cab that night. I didn't get my $2,800 out because I hadn't handed it over yet. And I'm grateful for that. Sometimes I think about how easily that could have gone differently. If I hadn't checked the trunk. If I had let him get in the passenger seat. If I had ignored the missing trunk release. I keep picturing those cuffs bolted into the metal. Not thrown in. Not forgotten. Installed as a feature. Like part of the car's design. And what really gets to me isn't just that they were there. It's that he stood there so calmly while I opened that trunk, like he'd done it before, and expected me not to notice. I don't even check misconnections anymore. I just happened to be bored. It was late, maybe 1 a.m., and I was scrolling through Craigslist out of habit. Sometimes the posts are funny, sometimes just sad. I never expect anything real from them. Then I saw one with the title that made my stomach tighten immediately. To the guy in the gray hoodie at the Riverside Trail. I had been at the Riverside Trail 3 nights earlier, alone, wearing a gray hoodie. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. The post described me perfectly. Height. Build. The small scar near my chin from when I wiped out on a bike years ago. It mentioned the way I run slightly uneven because of an old ankle injury. That's not something you'd notice casually. It said I had stopped near the water around 9:40 p.m. and stood there longer than normal, which I did. I remember that night clearly. I couldn't sleep, so I went for a run along the trail. It's usually quiet, but not empty. That night it felt different. Darker, fewer people around. I had stopped near the water because I thought I heard something behind me. Branches snapping. I turned around. Nothing there. Just the path stretching back into the trees. I stood there for a while, trying to calm down. Then I finished my run and went home. The post kept describing me. The brand of shoes I was wearing. The headphones around my neck. Even the way I kept glancing over my shoulder. I felt my chest tighten. Then I got to the last line. You shouldn't have survived that night. I read it 3 times. My hands felt cold. I checked the timestamp on the post. 2 hours ago. I stared at the screen, trying to convince myself it was a joke. Maybe someone trying to scare random people, but the details were too specific. I scrolled back up and read it again slowly. It ended with, "If you see this, reply. We need to talk." My brain was screaming at me not to respond, but something else was stronger. I needed to know what that meant. So I replied. Just a simple message asking what they were talking about. I closed the laptop and tried to sleep. I didn't. I kept thinking about that night on the trail. The way it felt like someone was there even though I couldn't see them. The next morning I had a reply in my inbox. Subject line just said you stopped. The message was short. You stopped near the water when you heard the sound. You looked directly at me. I felt like the floor had shifted under me. I hadn't seen anyone. I would remember that. The message continued. You were supposed to keep running. My heart was pounding hard. I typed back asking what they meant by supposed to. The reply came fast. The others didn't stop. My throat felt tight. What others? I asked that next. There was a longer pause before the next message. The others who ran that trail this month. I felt my stomach drop. I went online and searched local news. I hadn't heard anything about incidents on the trail, but there were 2 articles buried a few pages deep. One about a missing jogger 3 weeks ago. Another about someone found injured near the riverbank a week before that. I felt sick. I went back to my inbox. Another message had arrived. You heard me step on the branch. I stared at it. I asked what would have happened if I hadn't stopped. The reply came. You would have reached the bend. I didn't know what that meant. I pulled up a map of the trail. There is a bend in the path about half a mile past where I stopped. Dense trees on both sides. No houses nearby. I typed asking what was at the bend. No response. Then another message came through. You changed the timing. I didn't understand. Another message. I was waiting at the bend. My breathing felt shallow. So they had been ahead of me. Waiting. I asked why they posted now. The reply was slow this time. Because you weren't supposed to see me. I stared at that. If I hadn't stopped that night, if I had kept running, I would have reached that bend, where someone was waiting. I typed asking what they wanted now. The answer made my stomach twist. Closure. I didn't respond for a while. I kept thinking about that sound behind me that night. The branch snapping. I had assumed it was an animal, But if it was a person, they were behind me, not ahead. So how could they have been waiting at the bend? Another message came through before I could think more. I was behind you first. I felt a cold wave go through me. I had turned around that night. I had scanned the trees. I hadn't seen anyone. Another message. You looked right at me. My chest tightened. I had looked into the darkness for a few seconds, but I saw nothing. Just trees. I typed back asking where they were standing. The response came. In the water. I felt my skin crawl. The river at that part of the trail is shallow near the edge, but deeper a few steps out. I remember looking toward it briefly. I hadn't seen anything. Another message. You couldn't see me because I wasn't above the surface. I felt like my brain couldn't process that sentence. Not above the surface. I thought about the way the water had looked that night. Dark. Flat. Barely moving. I asked what they meant. The reply came almost instantly. I was holding onto the rocks. I felt nauseous. They had been in the water. Waiting. Watching joggers pass. I don't know how long I stared at that message. Another one came. When you stopped, you forced me to move. I asked how. You turned. You made eye contact. I don't remember seeing a face. Just darkness. Another message. You shouldn't have survived that night. My heart felt like it might explode. I typed back asking if they were threatening me now. No reply. Instead, another message came. Check the trail camera footage from that night. My stomach dropped. There are security cameras near the entrance of the trail. I had passed one on my way in. I hadn't thought about it. I opened the city website and found a contact form for footage requests. Then my phone buzzed with another message. You won't see me in it. I felt like I was suffocating. Another message. I'm not in the footage. I'm under it. That sentence has not left my head since. I stopped replying after that. I blocked the email address. I haven't gone back to that trail. Sometimes at night, when I'm lying in bed, I replay that run in my head. The sound of the branch. The way I stopped instead of pushing forward. The way I looked toward the river and saw nothing. And I think about how close I came to that bend. How close I came to reaching whatever was waiting there. I don't know who wrote that post. I don't know if it was real. But every time I scroll past misconnections now, I feel like someone is trying to reconnect with a version of me that wasn't supposed to make it home. I didn't notice at first because everything smelled like lemon and bleach. That's the part that gets me. I walked into my apartment after work and it felt lighter. Cleaner. Like the air had been replaced. Floors shining. Counters wiped down. Even the baseboards looked new. For a second, I felt relieved. Like hiring someone off Craigslist for $150 to deep clean my place was the best decision I'd made all month. I had found her listing the night before. Independent cleaner, flexible hours, cash only. I'd been overwhelmed with work and my apartment had slowly turned into a disaster. Dishes stacked. Laundry piled up. Bathroom grossed in a way I didn't want to think about. So I messaged her, and she said she could come the next morning. She arrived right on time. Mid-30s maybe. Hair tied back tight. Plain clothes. Soft voice. She didn't smile much, but she wasn't rude. She walked through my place once, scanning everything carefully like she was memorizing it. I gave her the $150 up front because she asked for it before starting. She told me it would take about 4 hours and that I didn't need to stay. I had work anyway, so I left. All day, I kept thinking about how nice it would be to come home to a spotless apartment. And it was spotless. Kitchen sparkling. Bathroom tiles gleaming. Bedroom floor clear. Even my closet reorganized. I walked through each room slowly, impressed. She had even dusted the tops of the door frames, which I never would have thought to do. I almost texted her to say thanks. Then I walked in the bathroom to wash my hands, and I froze. The mirror above the sink was gone. Not broken. Not cracked. Just gone. In its place was a faint rectangle on the wall where the paint was slightly different. like something had been there for a long time. I stood there staring at the blank wall. I know for a fact there was a mirror there. I look at it every morning. I check the floor. No shards. No frame. Nothing. I walked into my bedroom. The full-length mirror that leaned against the wall behind my closet was missing too. The small decorative mirror near the door. Gone. I felt a slow wave of confusion turn into something colder. I went into the living room. The mirror above the couch. Missing. Only tiny nail holes left behind. I walked back to the bathroom slowly. Maybe she took them down to clean and forgot to put them back. I checked the hallway closet. Nothing. I checked under the bed. Nothing. Every mirror in my apartment was gone. I grabbed my phone and texted her, asking if she had removed the mirrors by accident. No reply. I called her. Straight to voicemail. The voicemail message was generic. No name. I sat on the edge of my bed trying to make sense of it. Why would someone take mirrors? They aren't worth much. They weren't expensive. Not antiques. Just basic mirrors from a department store. I walked back into the bathroom and stared at the empty space again. The air felt different without the reflection. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a spoon. I held it up, trying to see my reflection in the curved metal. I could see a warped version of my face, distorted, that made something in my chest tighten. I tried the screen of my phone, switching to the front camera. For a second, the image flickered. My face appeared. Normal. Then it glitched slightly before stabilizing. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe she thought the mirrors were dirty or broken and disposed of them. But who throws away someone else's property without asking? I walked through the apartment again, slower this time. Everything else was in place. Nothing stolen. Tub still there. Laptop untouched. Wallet on the counter. Just the mirrors missing. I sat on the couch and tried to calm down. Then I noticed something else. The walls where the mirrors had hung looked cleaner than the rest of the walls, like the area behind them had been scrubbed hard. I stepped closer to the bathroom wall. The faint rectangle where the mirror used to be had tiny marks around the edges, almost like scratches. I leaned in closer. They weren't random. They looked like thin lines, overlapping, like something had been pressed against the glass repeatedly. I stepped back slowly. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just a text. You don't need them anymore. My stomach dropped. I typed back asking who this was. No reply. Another text came through. They will show you what wants to be seen. My hands started shaking. I walked to my bedroom window and looked outside. Nothing unusual. Just cars parked along the street. Normal evening. I went back to my bathroom and stared at the blank wall again. Without the mirror, the room felt smaller. Stranger. I realized something else then. When I had walked in earlier, I hadn't caught my reflection in any surface. Not in the TV screen. Not in the microwave door. I went to the kitchen and looked at the microwave. It's glossy black. Usually I can see my outline in it. Now it looked dull. Flat. I leaned closer. No reflection. Just darkness. My chest tightened. I picked up my phone again and opened the front camera. This time, when the screen came on, there was a split-second delay before my image appeared. And in that split second, the background behind me looked different, like something standing there. Tall. Just behind my shoulder. Then it corrected to normal. I spun around. Nothing there. I felt cold. Another text buzzed through. It doesn't like mirrors. I didn't know what that meant, or who it was referring to. I slowly walked through my apartment again. Without mirrors, every room felt wrong. Off balance. I went to the closet and pulled out an old compact mirror from a drawer. One I barely use. I flipped it open slowly. My reflection stared back at me. Normal. But behind me, in the reflection of the room, there was something darker near the doorway. I snapped the compact shut instantly. My heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest. I'd opened it again. Just me. Empty doorway. I felt like I was losing control of my thoughts. I went to my front door and checked the lock again. Still locked. I grabbed my keys and stepped outside for air. The hallway mirror near the elevator reflected me clearly. I stared at it longer than necessary, making sure nothing stood behind me. Nothing did. When I stepped back into my apartment, it felt heavier, quieter. I hadn't replaced the mirrors yet. I don't know if I want to. Because sometimes late at night, when the lights are off and the apartment is dark, I feel like something is standing just out of view. And I can't tell if it's better not to see it. Or worse. I've always liked old furniture. Not because I'm classy or anything. I just like the idea that something survived other people's lives and ended up in mine. Scratches, dents, weird smells. It feels real. So when I saw the listing for a vintage wooden dresser for $120 solid oak must pick up today, I jumped on it. The pictures show a heavy 6-drawer piece with brass handles and carved edges, exactly the kind of thing I wanted for my bedroom. The seller said he was moving and couldn't take it with him. Address in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes away. Come after 4 p.m. I borrowed my cousin's truck and drove over after work. The house looked normal. Beige siding, trimmed lawn, nothing special. The driveway was empty except for a small moving trailer hitched to the garage. The man who answered the door looked tired but polite, maybe mid-50s, short gray hair, thin smile. He didn't say much, just nodded and led me down a hallway toward a spare bedroom. The dresser sat against the far wall. It looked exactly like the photos. Heavy, solid, slightly worn at the edges. I ran my hand across the top. Smooth. He told me it was old but sturdy. I asked if I could check the drawers. He nodded. I pulled open the first drawer. Empty. Second one. Empty. Third. Also empty. Just the faint smell of old wood. I went through all 6 quickly. Nothing inside. I told him I'd take it. I handed him the $120. He didn't count it right away, just held it loosely in one hand and watched me. I asked if he could help me carry it. He said his back was bad, but he'd try. We maneuvered it down the hallway slowly. It was heavier than I expected. As we passed the living room, I noticed something odd. There were no personal photos anywhere. No decorations. Walls mostly bare. Just a couch and a tub. It felt like the house had already been erased. We loaded the dresser into the truck bed and secured it. He thanked me. I thanked him. That was it. Nothing dramatic. I drove home feeling good about the purchase. Once I got it into my bedroom, I wiped it down and started arranging my clothes inside. Top drawer for shirts. Second for jeans. When I got to the bottom drawer, I noticed something different. It didn't slide as smoothly as the others. It caught slightly halfway out. I pulled harder. It opened. Inside was a stack of papers. Neatly arranged. I froze. I was sure I had checked every drawer at the house. Maybe I missed this one. I lifted the stack. The top sheet was a missing person flyer. Black and white photo. Large bold letters at the top. Missing. My photo. Not a random one from social media. A candid shot of me walking into my apartment building. I felt my entire body go cold. I stared at the image. It was definitely me. Same jacket I wear almost every day. Same backpack. I looked at the name printed underneath. My full name. Age. Height. Eye color. Lasting location. My current address. The date listed as missing was 2 days in the future. I felt like the room tilted. I flipped through the stack. More missing person flyers. All with my photo. Different angles. Some older photos from years ago. One from what looked like a grocery store parking lot. Another from outside my workplace. Every single one had my name. Some had different last seen dates. All in the future. I dropped the papers onto the bed. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like it might burst. I grabbed my phone and checked the date. Normal. Today. I wasn't missing. I was standing in my bedroom holding my own missing flyer. I looked at the bottom of one sheet. If you have any information, contact. The phone number printed, there wasn't one I recognized. I searched it quickly. No results. I ran to my front door and checked the locks. Still locked. I ran to the windows. Closed. I went back to the dresser. The bottom drawer was deeper than the others. I reached my hand inside and felt along the back panel. My fingers brushed something taped to the wood. I peeled it off slowly. A small flash drive. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I hesitated before plugging it into my laptop. But curiosity won. The drive contained a single folder, labeled with my name. Inside were photos. Hundreds of them, organized by date, going back years. Me in high school. Me at college orientation. Me at my current apartment. The earliest one was from when I was maybe 15, taken from across the street while I was walking home. None of them were selfies. All from a distance. Like someone following me for most of my life. I scrolled through them feeling sick. The last folder was dated yesterday. Inside was a photo of me loading the dresser into the truck, taken from across the street. I stared at it for a long time. That means someone was there, watching me take it. Another image in the same folder showed me driving away. The angle suggested it was taken from inside a car parked down the block. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I went back to the missing flyers on my bed. The top one had that future date. 2 days from now. Last seen at home. I felt like the walls were closing in. Why would someone make missing flyers before someone disappears? Unless they plan to make it happen. My phone buzzed suddenly. I nearly threw it across the room. Unknown number. Just a text. Nice choice. I stared at the message. Another one came through. You found them early. I felt cold from the inside out. I typed back asking who this was. No reply. I called the number. Straight to voicemail. I walked to the dresser slowly. Every part of it felt different now. Not vintage. Not charming. Just heavy. Solid. Capable of hiding things. I crouched down and examined the bottom drawer more closely. The back panel looked slightly newer than the rest of the wood, like it had been replaced. I pushed on it gently. It moved inward slightly. There was space behind it. I pulled harder and the panel popped loose. Inside the hollow back of the dresser was more paper. More stacks. More missing flyers. Not just mine. Other faces. Different names. Different ages. Some marked with red pen. Crossed out. I felt like my brain stopped processing things normally. This wasn't random. This wasn't a prank. This was organized. Deliberate. I grabbed my phone and started taking photos of everything. As I snapped pictures, another text came in. No need to document. I froze. Another message. You're ahead of schedule. I felt like someone was standing just outside my bedroom door, watching. I ran to the door and yanked it open. Empty hallway. I went back to the window and looked outside. Street quiet. Normal. My phone buzzed again. We can adjust the date. I felt I was losing my grip on reality. I called the police. Tried to explain. They came. Looked at the dresser. Looked at the flyers. Took the flash drive. They asked about the cellar. I gave them the address. When they went to check it, the house was empty. For sale sign out front. No one living there. The moving trailer gone. The dresser is still in my room because they told me not to move it until they finish investigating. Sometimes at night, I lie in bed staring at it, thinking about those future dates, wondering if they were predictions or plans. Because the worst part isn't finding your own missing person flyer. It's knowing someone already printed it. I don't even work out that much. That's the dumb part. I saw the ad at like 1 a.m. when I was lying in bed telling myself I'd start getting in shape soon. Free workout equipment. Must pick up today. Clearing out a garage. The pictures showed a bench press, some dumbbells, a squat rack. All decent brands. I figured even if I didn't use it much, I could resell it later. Free is free. The address was on the edge of a quiet suburban neighborhood. Older houses, wide driveways, trimmed hedges. Nothing sketchy about it. The guy replied fast and said the garage would be open around 3 p.m. Just pull into the driveway. I got there right at 3. Sun's still up, kids riding bikes 2 houses down. Normal afternoon. The driveway was empty. The garage door was halfway open. I parked and walked up, expecting to see weights scattered around. Instead, the garage was completely empty. Bare concrete floor, no shelves, no boxes. And right in the center of the space, perfectly aligned with the open garage door, was a single metal folding chair. That's it. Just one chair. I stood there for a few seconds, thinking maybe I had the wrong address. I checked the number on the house. It matched. I pulled my phone out and read the message. Garage will be open. Come inside. I stepped closer to the opening. The air inside felt cooler than outside, even though it was warm out. No car parked inside. No equipment stacked in corners. Nothing. Just that chair. It wasn't even fancy, just one of those basic gray metal folding chairs you see at school events, placed exactly in the middle. I felt that weird tight feeling in my chest, but told myself maybe the equipment was already taken and he forgot to update the listing. I called out hello. My voice echoed slightly off the bare walls. No response. I stepped fully into the garage. My shoes made a hollow sound against the concrete. The moment both feet were inside, I heard the garage door motor kick on. I turned around fast. The door started lowering. Slowly at first, then steady. I rushed toward it, but before I could reach it, it slammed down completely. Dark mist filled the space except for a thin strip of light at the bottom where the door met the ground. My heart started pounding instantly. I grabbed the handle and tried to lift it. It didn't budge. Locked. I spun around. The chair sat in the middle like it had been waiting. I pulled my phone out. No signal. No bars. I moved closer to the garage door, holding my phone up. Still nothing. I felt heat rush through my body. I banged on the metal door with my fist. The sound echoed painfully loud in the small space. No one answered. I turned back toward the chair. I don't know why, but it suddenly felt important. Like the entire garage was built around it. There was a small camera mounted high in one corner near the ceiling. I hadn't noticed it before. Tiny red light glowing. Someone was watching. My breathing got faster. I looked back at the chair, then at the camera, then back at the chair. It clicked in my head in a way I didn't want it to. The chair wasn't random. It was placed for a reason. I stepped slowly toward it. My legs felt weak. As I got closer, I noticed something attached to the back legs. Thin black straps, blended against the metal. I crouched slightly and looked closer. Restraints. Not huge, not obvious, but definitely straps meant to hold wrists and ankles. My stomach twisted so hard it hurt. I backed up quickly. The overhead light flicked on suddenly, bright and harsh. I flinched. A speaker somewhere above crackled faintly. Then silence. I stared up at the ceiling, scanning for more cameras. I saw at least 2. One pointed directly at the chair. I felt exposed standing there, like I was already part of something. My phone vibrated in my hand. No signal a second ago. Now there was one bar. A text came through. Sit down. My throat went dry. Another message. It's the only way out. I stared at the words. I typed back asking what this was. No reply. Another text. We only need a few minutes. I felt like the walls were closing in. I walked back to the garage door and slammed my shoulder against it. It didn't move. I looked for any manual release cord. There wasn't one. Just smooth metal panels. I checked the side door that usually connects garages to houses. There wasn't one. Just 4 blank walls. The chair sat perfectly centered. Another message. You answered the ad. You came willingly. That line made my heart pound even harder. I hadn't forced my way in. I had stepped inside on my own. Another message came through. Free equipment. You just have to work for it. My head was spinning. I backed into the corner of the garage as far from the chair as possible. My phone buzzed again. You have 3 minutes. I looked at the camera. That red light felt like an eye. I tried calling 911. No signal again. I moved around the space, testing corners for reception. Nothing. The overhead light buzzed faintly. The garage felt smaller now. I could hear my own breathing echoing back at me. Another message. 2 minutes. I stared at the chair. Imagined sitting in it. Imagined those straps tightening. Imagined not being able to move. I felt panic rising so fast it was hard to think straight. I looked up at the garage door track near the ceiling. There was a thin metal rail. Maybe if I could reach it. I dragged the chair slightly to the side, keeping distance from the straps. I climbed onto it carefully, making sure not to sit fully. Just stepping on the seat. The camera shifted slightly, following me. I reached up and grabbed the rail. It felt loose. I pulled hard. The metal bent slightly, but didn't break. My phone buzzed again. 1 minute. I pulled harder. The rail snapped free at one end and fell, clanking loudly against the floor. Sparks flew near the garage door motor. The overhead light flickered. I jumped down and grabbed the loose rail. I slammed it against the garage door panel near the lock mechanism. Once. Twice. On the third hit, something inside the motor unit sparked loudly and the garage door jerked upward a few inches. Light flooded in through the gap. I dropped the rail and threw my hands under the door, lifting with everything I had. It resisted for a second, then lifted higher. Enough to crawl under. I didn't hesitate. I dove out onto the driveway. The door slammed back down behind me. I scrambled to my feet and ran to my car. My phone buzzed one last time as I unlocked it. Missed opportunity. I didn't look back. I drove straight home, heart still racing. Later that night, I checked the listing again. It was gone. No trace. I keep thinking about that chair. How perfectly centered it was. How the straps blended in just enough. And how close I came to sitting down. I've dealt with awkward sellers before. People who mumble. People who barely make eye contact. People who overshare their entire life story while you're just trying to buy a desk. But I've never met someone who refused to speak at all. The listing was simple. Antique floor lamp, good condition, $80. The photo showed a tall brass lamp with a heavy base and a cream-colored shade. It looked solid. I had just moved into a small house and needed better lighting in my living room. $80 felt reasonable. The seller's replies were short but polite. He gave me an address in an older neighborhood near the train tracks. Said to come around 6 p.m. Exact cash. When I pulled up, the house looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. Pale green siding. Small porch. Curtains drawn tight in every window. No cars in the driveway. I checked the address again to make sure I was in the right place. As I stepped onto the porch, the front door opened before I could knock. He stood there holding a small notepad and pen. Mid-40s maybe, thin, pale skin, hair combed flat against his head. His eyes looked tired but alert. He didn't say hello. He just held up the notepad. It read, "Come in." I hesitated for a second. Maybe he was mute. Maybe he had a medical issue. I nodded and stepped inside. The house smelled faintly like dust and something metallic underneath it. Not strong, just there. The living room was dim. Only one lamp on in the corner. The floor lamp from the listing stood near the center of the room. He walked over to it and pointed. I looked it over. It matched the photos. Solid base. No visible damage. I asked if I could test it. He scribbled something quickly and held it up. It works. Then he plugged it in and switched it on. Warm yellow light filled the small space. It worked fine. I pulled the $80 from my wallet and held it up slightly. He wrote again. Leave it on the table. I placed the cash on a small wooden table near the door. He counted it silently, then wrote something else. Do you want help carrying it? I shook my head. I bent down to lift the lamp. It was heavier than I expected. Solid metal. As I straightened up, I noticed something odd. The house was too quiet. Not just no TV or music. No refrigerator hum. No distant traffic noise. Just complete stillness. I turned slightly to head toward the door. He scribbled again and held the notepad up quickly. Wait. I paused. He wrote again, slower this time. You dropped something. I looked down at the floor near my feet. Nothing there. I shifted the lamp to one hand and glanced around. Still nothing. He tore the page off the notepad and handed it to me. On it, in uneven handwriting, it said double up behind you. I felt my stomach drop instantly. I stared at the words. I could feel the air shift behind me, like something was standing closer than it should be. My body reacted before my brain did. My shoulders tensed. My breath went shallow. I wanted to spin around, but the way he wrote it, don't look behind you. Not don't turn around. Not it's nothing. Just don't look. I forced myself to keep facing forward. I slowly raised my eyes to his face. He was watching me carefully. Not smiling. Not panicked. Just focused. He wrote again. Keep facing me. My heart was pounding so loud I thought I might faint. I became hyper-aware of the space behind me. The temperature felt different. Cooler. I could swear I heard something faint, like fabric brushing against itself. I told myself this was a prank. Maybe someone else was in the house. Maybe he was trying to scare me. I shifted my weight slightly. The lamp felt heavier in my hands. He wrote again. It moves when you do. My mouth went dry. I stared at him, waiting for some sign that this was a joke. There wasn't one. He kept his eyes on me, never glancing behind me. I realized something then. If this was a prank, he would want to see my reaction. He would look past me, but he wasn't. His gaze stayed locked on my face. I felt a faint warmth near the back of my neck, like someone breathing. I wanted to run, but running would mean turning. I swallowed hard and took a small step sideways, still facing him. The warmth shifted, staying directly behind me. My vision felt narrow, like the room was shrinking. He scribbled faster this time. It likes attention. My hands started shaking. The lamp wobbled slightly. I tightened my grip. I asked in a low voice what he meant. He didn't respond verbally, just wrote, If you look, it will follow you home. That was the point where logic completely left my brain. I felt trapped between him and whatever was behind me. I could hear something faint now. Not breathing exactly. More like a low hum. I forced myself to think. Maybe there was a mirror behind me reflecting something. Maybe I was being manipulated. I took another careful step toward the door, still facing him. The hum grew slightly louder. My back felt exposed, like something inches away. He wrote again. Almost to the door. I nodded slowly. I took another step. The lamp brushed lightly against something behind me. I felt it. A soft resistance. I nearly screamed but forced it down. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I reached back blindly with one hand to feel what was there. He shook his head quickly and wrote again. Don't touch it. I pulled my hand back immediately. My fingers felt cold. I was 2 steps from the door now. He wrote again. When you step outside, don't stop moving. I nodded again. My legs felt weak. I took one final step back toward the door. My heel hit the threshold. The warmth behind me intensified for a second, like something pressing close. I yanked the door open without turning around and stepped out onto the porch, still facing him. The evening air hit my face hard. I took another step backward off the porch. He remained inside, standing in the doorway. He wrote one last note and held it up. Don't live until you're home. Then he closed the door. I stood there for a second, heart racing. I wanted to spin around so badly. But the memory of that warmth, that hum, kept me frozen. I turned carefully so that my back was never fully exposed. I walked to my car without looking directly behind me. I put the lamp in the back seat. Got in. Drove. I kept my eyes on the road. Every red light felt like torture. Every stop sign made my chest tighten. I refused to check the rearview mirror. I didn't look at the back seat. I didn't look at the road behind me. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a full minute. Then slowly, carefully, I turned my head to glance at the back seat. The lamp was there. Alone. Nothing else. I rushed inside with it and locked the door. I haven't turned the lamp on yet. It's still in the corner of my living room, unplugged. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet, I feel that same faint warmth at my back, and I have to resist the urge to look. I knew something was wrong before the desktop even finished loading. The fan kicked on loud the second I opened the laptop, like it had been waiting for me. Not booting up slow like old secondhand computers usually do. Just instant. Awake. I bought it off Craigslist because mine died during finals week. Perfect timing, right? Screen went black mid-paper and never turned back on. I didn't have money for anything new, so when I saw a listing for a decent laptop for $350, I jumped on it. The guy said he had upgraded for work and didn't need this one anymore. Clean install. Wiped. Ready to use. We met at a coffee shop near campus. He looked normal. Tired eyes, hoodie, laptop in a sleeve. He let me power it on there. It went to a setup screen asking for language and region. Seemed legit. I handed him the $350 and left feeling relieved. I didn't turn it on again until that night in my apartment. I remember sitting at my desk with the lamp on low, rain tapping lightly against the window. I opened the laptop and pressed the power button. It didn't go to the setup screen. It went straight to the desktop. No password prompt. No account creation. Just a plain wallpaper and a single document open in the center of the screen. The title bar at the top made my stomach drop. It was my full name. First, middle, and last. Spelled correctly. Not a common combination. I just stared at it. I thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe the previous owner had the same name. But my middle name isn't common. I moved the mouse slowly. The cursor responded instantly. The document was already open, like someone had been writing in it seconds before I powered it on. I hesitated before scrolling. The document wasn't empty. It was a list. My date of birth. My current address. My high school. My college major. I felt this wave of heat go through me. I scrolled further down. It listed jobs I had worked, places I had lived, even a minor car accident I was in when I was 17. Details that weren't all public. Some of it could be found online. Some couldn't. I sat back in my chair and felt dizzy. I checked the top right corner of the screen to see what user account was logged in. The account name wasn't mine. It was something generic. But the document was clearly about me. I moved the mouse again and clicked into the text. The cursor blinked at the end of the last line, which read currently reviewing options. My heart started pounding. Reviewing options for what? I looked at the file history tab. Last edited 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, I had just gotten home from class. The laptop had been closed in my backpack. I checked the Wi-Fi connection. It was connected to my network automatically. I opened up because I hadn't entered the password yet. That feeling hit me again. The same one from other moments in my life when something feels just slightly off, but you can't explain it. I opened the file explorer. There were folders on the desktop, labeled with years. I clicked one. Inside were screenshots of my social media pages, of my online class schedule, of my apartment building listing. I opened another folder. Photos, taken from a distance. Me walking into my building. Me sitting in a cafe near campus. Me getting into my car. Angles that meant someone was watching. For a long time. My hands started shaking. I went back to the document. I scrolled further. At the bottom, below currently reviewing options, a new line appeared. The cursor moved on its own. Present and aware. I froze. I hadn't touched the keyboard. The letters appeared one by one. Present and aware. I felt like my lungs stopped working. I slammed the laptop shut. Just closed it hard. Sat there staring at the dark screen. My reflection fainted it. I told myself this was malware. Some sick prank. Maybe the guy set it up remotely. I opened it again. The document was still there. But now the bottom line said panicking. I felt like I might throw up. I unplugged my router from the wall. The Wi-Fi symbol disappeared from the corner of the screen. The cursor blinked again. Another line appeared. Still here. How? There was no internet connection. My hands felt numb. I unplugged the laptop charger. Battery icon showed 78%. I hovered over the power button on the screen. The cursor moved before I clicked anything. Don't. Just that word. Typed into the document. I stared at it. I slowly reached for the laptop lid again and closed it. This time, when I opened it, the screen stayed black for a second longer. Then it came back to the same desktop. Same document. But now the text had changed. My address was gone. My job history was gone. Instead, the document was filled with new lines. Observations. Breathing elevated. Heart rate increased. Alone. I felt my chest tighten. I stood up from my desk and backed away. The laptop screen glowed in the dim room. I looked around my apartment like someone might be standing there watching me through a camera. I grabbed the laptop and turned it around to check for stickers or hidden devices. Nothing obvious. I went to the settings and checked the webcam indicator. The tiny light next to the camera was off. But when I leaned closer, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A small dot of tape had been placed over the camera. From the inside. Between the screen and the frame. You wouldn't notice unless you looked closely. I peeled it off. The webcam light flickered on immediately, even though I hadn't opened any camera app. On the screen, the document updated again. Clearer view now. I felt like the room tilted. I slammed the laptop shut and this time held the power button down until it forced a shutdown. The screen went black. I sat there breathing hard. I didn't open it again that night. The next morning, I took it to a local repair shop and asked them to wipe it completely. The technician said it looked like a clean install already. No obvious malware. No remote access software running. He asked why I wanted it wiped. I just said I didn't trust secondhand devices. He reset it in front of me. Fresh system. Blank desktop. I brought it home and turned it on. For a second, it looked normal. Then a single document icon appeared on the desktop. Untitled. I stared at it. I didn't click it. I closed the laptop slowly. I haven't opened it since. Sometimes when I'm in my apartment at night, I feel that same awareness. Like something observing. Not through the laptop. Just generally. Like I'm part of some file somewhere. And the worst part isn't that someone gathered all that information about me. It's that the document kept updating. In real time. I didn't cry when I sold my wedding dress. I thought I would, but I didn't. It just felt like clearing space. The dress had been in the back of my closet for almost 2 years. Zipped up in a garment bag, untouched. My marriage ended fast and messy and I moved into a smaller house alone. I didn't want reminders hanging behind my coats. So one night, after a glass of wine and too much scrolling, I took it out, laid it on my bed, and took pictures. It was still beautiful. Lace sleeves, long train, fitted waist. I listed it for $600. Barely worn, professionally cleaned, size small. I didn't expect many responses, but by morning, I had 3 messages. One stood out. A woman said she loved the style and needed something quickly for a small ceremony. She sounded polite, almost shy. We agreed she would come by the next afternoon to try it on. I hesitated about giving my address, but I figured it was broad daylight and I'd have my neighbor home next door. When she arrived, she looked normal, maybe early 30s, dark hair pulled back, simple clothes, no makeup. She didn't smile much, but she wasn't rude either. I let her in. She walked straight toward the dress like she'd already memorized its shape from the photos. When she tried it on, it fit her almost perfectly. That should have felt satisfying. Instead, it made my chest tight. It looked too right on her. She stood in front of my hallway mirror for a long time, just staring at herself, turning slightly, tilting her head. Her expression didn't change much. I asked if she liked it. She nodded slowly, said she'd take it. She handed me the cash, $600 exactly. No negotiation. Before she left, she asked if she could take a photo in it, just for reference. I didn't think that was weird. People do that. She stepped outside onto my front lawn, stood near the walkway, and had me take a quick picture with her phone. She didn't pose, just stood there. Then she changed back into her clothes, folded the dress carefully into the bag, and left. I remember watching her car pull away. A small gray sedan. I felt lighter after that, like I had finally closed the chapter. The next day around noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I opened the message. It was a photo, the same wedding dress, on her. But she wasn't in front of my house the way she had been the day before. She was closer, standing directly at the edge of my driveway, right in front of my front door, and the photo was taken from across the street. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I stared at the image, trying to convince myself it was from yesterday, but no. Yesterday she had stood near the walkway. In this photo, she was inches from my porch steps. The angle was different, wider, and the lighting looked slightly dimmer like later in the day. I looked at the timestamp. That morning, 10:42 a.m. I had been at work at 10:42 a.m. My heart started pounding. I zoomed in on the photo. You could see my front windows behind her. My car wasn't in the driveway because I had taken it to work. The blinds in my living room were slightly open, exactly how I left them. I felt sick. Another message came through. Fits better today. That was it. No explanation. No question. Just that. I ran to my front window and looked outside. Nothing. Street empty. Normal afternoon. I checked my door locks. Still locked. I tried to breathe normally. I typed back asking why she was in my house again. No reply. I called the number. Straight to voicemail. Generic message. I stood in my living room staring at my front door like it might open on its own. I checked the camera app on my phone and opened the photo again. Something else caught my eye. Behind her, in the reflection of my front window, there was a faint shape. Inside the house. It looked like someone standing just behind the glass. I zoomed in until the image got grainy. The shape was blurred but unmistakable. Human height. Inside my house. At 10:42 a.m. When I was at home. I felt like my knees might give out. I called my neighbor and asked if she saw anyone around my house that morning. She said she hadn't noticed anything unusual. I didn't tell her about the dress. I didn't know how to explain it without sounding insane. Around 3 p.m., another message came in. A second photo. This one taken from my front yard again. But she was closer still. Standing on my porch, right in front of my door, wearing the dress, her face expressionless. And this time, the front door behind her was slightly open. Just a crack. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I knew for a fact I had locked the door before leaving for work. I always double check. I zoomed in on the crack in the door. Darkness inside. Another message followed. I like your house. I felt cold all over. I left work early and drove home as fast as I could without thinking straight. When I pulled into my driveway, everything looked normal. Front door closed. No car parked nearby. No woman in a wedding dress. I walked up to the door slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The house felt normal. Quiet. Nothing out of place at first glance. I checked every room. Closets. Bathroom. Bedroom. Empty. But when I reached the hallway mirror where she had first tried on the dress, I stopped. There were faint footprints on the hardwood floor. Barefoot. Small. Leading from the front door into the hallway. And stopping right in front of the mirror. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I followed the prints back toward the door. They faded near the entrance. I looked at my phone again. Another message had come through while I was checking the rooms. A third photo. This one taken inside my house. In my hallway. In front of my mirror. Her wearing the dress. Standing exactly where she had tried it on the day before. My stomach twisted so hard it hurt. I looked around my hallway. Empty. Mirror reflecting only me. But in the photo she was there. Staring straight at the camera. Behind her in the reflection, the hallway looked darker than it should. Like something was standing further back. I backed away slowly. Another message. Thank you for something old. I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. I called the police and tried to explain, but by the time they arrived, there was no sign of forced entry. No clear evidence. Just faint footprints that could have been mine. I showed them the photos. They asked for the number. I gave it to them. They said they'd look into it. That night, I stayed at my sister's place. I couldn't be alone in my house. The next morning, the messages were gone. The photos deleted from the thread. Like they had never been sent. But I still had the first one saved. Her standing in front of my house. In my dress. Smiling slightly. I changed my locks. Installed cameras. But sometimes when I'm driving home from work and turning onto my street, I get this horrible image in my head. Her standing on my porch again. Waiting. Wearing something borrowed. The easiest money I ever almost made was for doing absolutely nothing. That's what the ad said in a way. Overnight security needed. Catch paid in the morning. $400 for one night. No heavy lifting. No patrol required. Must be comfortable being alone. I had been up late scrolling through Craigslist again, because that's apparently when all bad decisions start. $400 for sitting somewhere overnight sounded unreal. Most security jobs want licenses or background checks. This one just wanted someone reliable and quiet. I emailed. The reply came quick. Warehouse on the south side of town. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You will be monitored to ensure you stay awake. Do not bring guests. Do not leave the chair. That last line stuck out. Do not leave the chair. I almost laughed when I read it. What kind of security job tells you not to move? But rent was due and my bank account looked sad. I drove out there at 9:45 p.m. The south side is mostly industrial buildings, long stretches of road with chain link fences and dark loading docks. During the day, it's busy with trucks. At night, it's dead. The warehouse looked half abandoned. Faded company logo on the side. A single light over a side entrance door. A man was waiting outside when I pulled up. Tall, thin, wearing a long dark coat even though it wasn't that cold. His face was hard to read in the low light. He didn't waste time with introductions. Just unlocked the side door and gestured for me to follow. Inside, the warehouse was huge. Concrete floors, high ceilings, rows of empty metal shelves stretching into darkness. Only a small section near the entrance was lit by 2 overhead lights. In the middle of that lit area was a single folding chair, facing into the dark. Not toward the door, not toward the shelves, just into the open space. I stopped walking when I saw it. He told me that was my post. Sit there from 10 to 6. Stay awake. Do not turn around. If you leave the chair before 6 a.m., you forfeit payment. I asked what exactly I was securing. He said nothing, just presence. That word made my stomach tighten. Presence. He handed me a bottle of water and pointed to a small table beside the chair. No phone charger, no snacks, no entertainment. I asked what about bathroom breaks. He said hold it. Then he stepped back into the darkness. I heard a metal door close somewhere behind me, and that was it. I stood there for a second staring at the chair. The rest of the warehouse beyond the light looked endless, like the darkness was thick. I checked my phone. 10:02 p.m. I told myself this was easy. Just sit. So I did. I sat in the folding chair. It creaked under my weight. The light above buzzed faintly. The concrete floor felt colder than it should have. I stared straight ahead into the dark. At first, I couldn't see anything beyond the edge of the light. Just black. After about 20 minutes, my eyes started adjusting. I could make out faint outlines of shelves, stacked empty. The space felt bigger the longer I looked. Around 10:40 p.m., I felt it. That sensation of being watched. Not imagined. Not vague. Real. Like someone's eyes were fixed on the back of my head. I reminded myself he said I would be monitored. Maybe there were cameras. I resisted the urge to turn around. Do not turn around. That instruction replayed in my head. So I stayed facing forward. Around 11:15 p.m., I heard a faint sound. Not from outside. From the darkness in front of me. A soft shuffle. Like a shoe scuffing concrete. My heartbeat sped up immediately. I told myself it was the building settling. Old warehouses make noises. Then it happened again. Closer this time. I gripped the edges of the chair. Every part of me wanted to stand up and walk toward the sound. But I stayed seated. 11:47 p.m. My phone screen lit up for a second with a low battery warning. I lowered the brightness to save power. I kept staring forward. The dark felt closer now, like it was leaning in. Around midnight, I heard breathing. Faint. Not mine. Slow and steady. Coming from directly in front of me somewhere just beyond the light. My skin felt tight. I tried to focus on the shelves. I counted them silently. 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. The breathing continued. Not moving. Just there. Watching. I suddenly understood what he meant by presence. It wasn't about protecting anything. It was about me being there. For something else. Around 1 a.m., the overhead light flickered. Just once. In that split second of dimness, I thought I saw a shape at the edge of the light. Tall. Standing still. When the light steadied, it was gone. My throat felt dry. I didn't touch the water bottle. I was afraid that moving too much would break whatever rule I didn't fully understand. Around 2 a.m., the breathing got closer. Not louder. Just nearer. I could feel it in the space between us. Like someone was standing right at the boundary of the light. Just outside of it. Watching my face. I kept my eyes locked forward. I refused to blink too long. Then something brushed the side of the chair. Lightly. Like fingers trailing across metal. I nearly jumped but forced myself not to move. The chair creaked softly. I felt a presence to my left now. Then to my right. Circling. But I never heard footsteps moving around me. Just the breathing shifting position. At 3:12 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I turned my eyes slightly without moving my head. Just enough to see the edge of the light behind me. Nothing visible. But the feeling was stronger behind my chair now. Directly behind me. Close enough that if I leaned back, I might touch something. I felt warm air near my ear. A slow exhale. I almost screamed. Instead, I gripped the chair so hard my knuckles hurt. Do not turn around. That rule echoed in my head. I realized something then. The job wasn't security. It was endurance. Someone wanted to see how long I could sit there. Being watched. Around 4 a.m., the overhead light flickered again. Longer this time. The warehouse dipped into near darkness for 2 full seconds. In those seconds, I saw it. Not clearly. Just a silhouette directly in front of me. Human-shaped. Too tall. Head slightly tilted. Then the light came back on, and nothing was there. I started shaking. I checked my phone. 5:38 a.m. Almost done. The breathing was constant now. Steady. Patient. At 5:59 a.m., the metal door behind me opened. I nearly collapsed from relief. The man stepped into the light. He looked at me calmly, then glanced into the darkness beyond me. He nodded slightly, like he was acknowledging someone else. He handed me an envelope. $400 inside. Exact amount. He told me I could leave. I stood up slowly. My legs felt numb. As I walked toward the door, I glanced into the darkness one last time. For a split second, I thought I saw movement between the shelves, like something retreating deeper into the warehouse. I didn't ask questions. I drove home as the sun came up. The money felt heavy in my pocket. That night, when I tried to sleep, I kept thinking about how close the breathing had been, how it moved without footsteps, and how the man nodded into the darkness like he wasn't the only one watching. I never saw that listing again. But sometimes when I'm alone in my room late at night, sitting still for too long, I get that same feeling. Like something just outside the light is waiting for me to move. I thought the weirdest part about being broke was how fast you stop asking questions. The listing said personal assistant needed remote work, flexible hours, $500 a week to start. Simple administrative tasks, discretion required. That last part should have stood out more than it did. I had been applying to everything: data entry, delivery gigs, anything that didn't require a degree I didn't have. When this one replied within an hour asking for a short video introduction, I felt lucky. I recorded a quick clip in my bedroom, said my name, my availability, basic stuff, sent it off. He replied the same night. Said I was a good fit. No interview. Just a contract sent over email. Short, vague. Independent contractor. Digital management services. Payment every Friday. I signed it. My first assignment came the next morning. An email with a subject line that just said Task 1. Inside was a list of login credentials for different social media platforms, usernames and passwords, 5 accounts total, and a single sentence: delete all content and permanently remove the accounts. No explanation. I assumed maybe it was for someone trying to clear their online presence. Celebrities do that sometimes before rebranding. I clicked the first username. My stomach dropped immediately. The profile picture was me. Not similar. Not kind of. Exactly me. Same hair. Same face. Same scar near my left eyebrow from when I was 10. I stared at the screen for a long time trying to convince myself it was a coincidence. Someone who just looked like me. But the name on the profile wasn't mine. It was slightly different. Same first name. Different last name. I clicked into the account. Posts going back 3 years. Photos of him at places I had been. Restaurants I recognized. Parks near my apartment. But the dates didn't line up exactly. Some were days I was working late. Others were days I remember staying home. In every photo, he looked like me. Same build. Same expressions. Just slightly off. Like someone trying to copy me without fully understanding me. I felt cold all over. I clicked into the next platform. Same profile picture. Same face. Different username. More posts. Different angles. Selfies in what looked like an apartment that wasn't mine but had similar furniture. My heart started pounding. I checked the email again to make sure this wasn't some kind of test. Just the instruction: delete all content and permanently remove the accounts. I felt like I was staring at my own replacement. I opened the messages section on one of the accounts. There were conversations with people I didn't know. Casual chats. Inside jokes. Someone asking about meeting up next weekend. The way he typed felt close to how I type, but slightly different. Shorter sentences, less punctuation. I clicked into the Photos tab. There were pictures of him at a gym I go to. Same equipment in the background, but I had never taken those photos. I checked the dates. One was from 2 weeks ago. On that date, I remember clearly being at my sister's house for dinner. So how? I sat back in my chair and felt dizzy. I opened the third account. More of the same, this time with tagged photos from other people. People who thought they knew him. I clicked on one tagged photo and my heart nearly stopped. It was taken from across the street from my apartment building. You could see my balcony in the background. And there he was. Me, leaning against the railing. Except I had been inside that night watching a movie. I remember because it was raining and I didn't step outside once. I started breathing faster. I checked the login history on one platform. The most recent login was that morning. From an IP address in my city. I felt like the room was closing in on me. I looked at my own social media accounts on my phone. Everything normal. Same followers. Same posts. But when I searched for the alternate name, I couldn't find it publicly. The accounts were set to private. Only accessible through the credentials sent to me. I checked the email again. No signature. Just a generic address. I replied asking for clarification. No response. I sat there staring at the delete account button. If I deleted these, it would erase whatever proof existed that this person had been pretending to be me. Or maybe he wasn't pretending. Maybe I was the copy. That thought hit me so hard I had to stand up and pace around my room. I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked normal. Tired. Confused. But normal. I went back to my laptop. I clicked into one of the accounts and scrolled to the earliest posts. 3 years ago. The first post was a selfie. Caption about starting fresh. The date was around the time I moved into my current apartment. I felt like my brain was splitting in two. I checked the profile details. Birth date. Same month and day as mine. Year off by 1. Location. My city. Interests. Almost identical to mine. Favorite bands. Same. Favorite movies. Same. It was like someone had built a version of me from scraps of my public life. I checked my email again. A new message had come in. Subject line still task 1. The body said do not delay. I felt a wave of panic. Whoever this was expected me to erase this person. Why hire me to do it? Why not do it themselves? Unless they wanted me involved. I hovered over the delete button again. My hands were shaking. I clicked delete on the first account. A confirmation window popped up. Are you sure? I hesitated, then clicked confirm. The page refreshed. Account removed. My chest felt tight. I went to the second account. Click delete. Confirmed. Third. Fourth. Each one disappearing with a simple refresh. When I got to the last account, I paused. This one had the most activity. Most recent posts. The last photo was from yesterday. It was him. Me. Standing outside my building. Looking directly into the camera. Behind him, in one of the windows, I could see my living room light on. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I slowly turned my head toward my window. It was daytime. No reflection. Just glass. I looked back at the screen. Hovered over delete. And clicked. The account vanished. All 5 gone. I sat there staring at the empty inbox. Another email came in almost immediately. Task 1 complete. Payment will be processed. No mention of what came next. I didn't feel relief. I felt like I had just erased evidence. I searched the alternate name online again. Nothing. No trace. Like he never existed. That night, I kept thinking about the way he looked in that last photo. Like he knew. Like he expected me to be the one to remove him. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a notification from my own social media account. New login from unfamiliar device. Same city. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my camera app slowly and switched to the front-facing camera. For a second, it glitched. And in that glitch, I thought I saw someone standing just behind me. With my face. Then it corrected. Just me. Alone in my room. I haven't received task 2 yet. But sometimes when I scroll through my own posts, I get this horrible feeling that I'm looking at someone else's life. and that somewhere in some inbox there's another set of credentials waiting, with my name on them.